Hello, everyone. How do you do? Welcome back. Folks, Book Fair is going very well. Y'all, I have had so much fun this week. This is, of course, our last day of Book Fair, it's a little tough to look at. I'm going to be honest with you. Looking down the barrel of the final day, it's a little tough, but I want y'all to know I have been really very, very happy with all of the streams that we've had this week. I have been very happy with all of y'all coming in to try new stuff. That always makes me really happy because I've got the sort of core competencies of the channel. It's catching back up with me. I'm hoping this isn't a holdover from last night, because last night I was about as mumble mouthed as I've ever been. So I was hoping the rest. I rested well. I did a good job. I finished up my prep for this and then went right to bed like a good little lad. But I had some of the worst mumble mouth last night. I really appreciate y'all who come out and try the new stuff. We've got the reading. We've got some of the tabletop RPG stuff, and it's all fun. It's all good. It's all like I have so much fun doing all this stuff with y'all. And for all of you who have sort of branched out, tried some new stuff, I really appreciate it. Welcome to a Saturday stream. I think it's been a long time since we had a Saturday stream, if I remember correctly. And today we are dedicating it to a couple of different things. We are back with some reading. I think this morning, because it is morning for me still, technically, we are going to be embarking on part one of a little series that I'll talk more about in just a moment. This is called the Animorphs, and as you could hear from the intro music, I was like, typically I go for kind of a chill sort of intro music, but that one, this sort of like, it seemed appropriate for this one, so I was like, you know what, I'm going for it. I'm going big. I'm going for the version that could be the sort of like high action soundtrack to the like high action theme song. That is, I saw some folks saying it might be from the TV show. It was actually just something I found on, I use filmmusic.io for basically all my music. Yeah, I think all of my music. So yeah, filmmusic.io, and so that is where that's from. If you're wondering whereabouts that particular song came from. Dolly says, "Woo! Team No Sleep, go!" I totally got sucked down a creepypasta rabbit hole last night. I could barely keep my eyes open. Alas, my old scary folder I had years ago is gone, but oh well. Just gives me the opportunity to rediscover old works and find new ones. Yeah, it's gonna be like a treasure hunt, Dahlia. You're gonna be able to go in and hunt down some of these old ones. It's gonna be delightful. Let's see. I've just discovered that Discord wasn't getting the right input, so I apologize for my gross noises. My gross sniffling noises. Those should be taken care of now. I know. I don't want it to end either. Courier6 says, I am very happy about this stream. Well, I'm glad to hear it, Courier6. Yeah, Jade, I don't want this week to end either. I could definitely do another week of Book Fair. Energy-wise, I could do another week. Now, work-wise, maybe not. Making sure that I'm getting some of the other tasks done, even just for sidecar stories, such as the editing, etc. Maybe not. But I like energy-wise. If I had the infrastructure underneath that would support another week, I could definitely do another week. I might be able to do a third week, but I do think I would start to to burn through a little bit, because it's the streaming, but it's also all the prep in between the streaming. So I'm putting in 7 to 8 hour stream days, but then there's another few hours after that, typically. Usually not before that. I had one day where I woke up pretty early, so I did the work before that, but usually it's after that. And then let's see, I woke up about 20 minutes ago. 25 minutes ago. Yeah. Yes, indeed. Dahlia says, I found some old favorites and posted those last night. All vetted if they've got the diamond react. So, Dahlia, indeed, we have we've now got a Spooky Stories channel over in Discord that is going to stay up for, I think the remainder of October. That seems like a good October little project there. If you would like to, that is, if you would like to link stories, you can also post them there if you have written them. But that one's just like, feel free to link stories if you wish. Dahlia has got some rules in there because of the sort of nature of spooky stories in general. Please read those. I'm going to enforce those, so please do read those rules before you post anything, and post according to the rules. And then, of course, if you've got stuff that you have written, whether it is for Spooky Month or perhaps for anything else, we've of course got the Inkjets writing group channel over there with some options. If you do want feedback, if you don't want feedback, just want to post something up, it's a good spot. It's a good scene. Sandra says, question: when will you be able to collect my present? That is going to be, let's see, Monday, because tomorrow it won't be open. I tried to find an opportunity, but basically the time that I would have had to go and retrieve the thing would have been in the mornings, but that's precisely when Cass needs the car. So, yeah, there was actually, I went back sort of and looked through my memory for, would I have had an opportunity to go get the thing before book fair? And there actually was one day. There was about a half day where it would have been possible for me to go get it amidst the other prep that I had to do, and when it arrived, etc. There was one day where there were a few hours when I could have gone to grab it. I did not do so because I used that to just sort of, I filled that in with more prep, and it turns out that brought me right up to book fair, and throughout book fair, like there really has not been a chance to go get it. So sorry, Sander, but Monday I will have it. I'll have it on Monday, which should mean that on Tuesday I can tag that one in with some of the rest of the stuff. So I'm looking forward to it. Sander, thank you. Dahlia, let's see. Dahlia Gems says, Sam's poor voice. It's been a fantastic week. Well, folks, if you want to hear my poor voice a little bit more, Gems, what channel did you post that in? Because we just had the new Zodiac Task Force episode pop in. This is an audio show that Gems kind of got me looped in on, and it has been a lot of fun. You're gonna see some interesting stuff with my character specifically in this episode. There are, of course, we've got Gems in there as well, and possibly some other small voices that y'all might be familiar with. But yeah, Gems, I got to figure out precisely where you put that, because I saw it before and I was like, yes, fantastic, but I don't remember where it got posted. You haven't posted yet? Working on getting the prop together? No, the ZTF. You posted the link to the ZTF somewhere in here, but I saw it, which means it cleared the notification, and now I don't know where it lives. I, of course, will be posting that later underneath my, I think, creativity. Gotcha. Creativity channel. All right. Yep, there it is. Okay, so, y'all, if you are wondering, let me go ahead and post, I can copy the message link. Yes, perfect. All right, I'm going to pop this in here. If y'all want to go check that out, I will, of course, be posting it again, like I said. But yeah, it's a it's a really fun podcast. I've had a ton of fun. It's one of these things that, like, they've got a super quick turnaround over there. It's a group called Raving Lunatic Media, and when when they post something like when they're looking for voices for something, typically what that means on most parts of the internet is, yeah, we've got this project, and sometimes it'll get made, sometimes it'll get made and sit around for a long time, sometimes it will kind of half get made. With Raving Lunatic, if they post for voices and you do some recording for them, they're going to have something for you to show for it, like in a matter of sometimes days, sometimes weeks, but sometimes days, which is like, as somebody who, like is putting time toward that, super, super gratifying. So Raving Lunatic Media, shouts out, baby. They do a couple of different projects, including a true crime podcast and this Zodiac Task Force, which is a great, I sort of think of it along the lines of, like, Honestly, it might remind you somewhat of Animorphs, a little bit of like cross between something like Avatar and Star Trek in genre, I would say. Okay, folks, are you ready for today? Now, one thing I want to give y'all the heads up about. You know how some things have like staying power? You know how there are those things that you can really revisit them and they really hold up to the test of time. There are some things, and I think it's all right. I mean, it's all right to enjoy things that you like for sentimental reasons, that maybe they don't hold up so well on their own, but they meant something to you in the past, and so you are able to still continue to enjoy them. Um, uh, Animorphs isn't that. It's still so good. I was doing my prep for this earlier, and I'm talking contextually, of course. I'm not going to compare it in every way to the greatest works of literature, but I want to be super clear here. Like, reading through and seeing how the differentiation between characters has been organized, how just especially how different characters react to things, how they each have their own clear lives and personalities, as opposed to just sort of being a mush where we need somebody to do something, so I guess I'll just roll a die and pick a character at random to do something, rather than the natural outcomes of these different personalities and different characters. Animorphs holds up. The artwork is kind of goofy, and I think basically anytime you have ever seen something from Animorphs, I think from my perspective, and maybe this is different for y'all, I will say I always found visually Animorphs to be a very silly enterprise. But when you dig into it, it does not ring as silly. It does ring as a little young. Obviously, that is the genre that it's in. But we're not talking like young and stupid. We're talking young and really quite well handled. So I want to commend K.A. Applegate on all of this. I know there may be some continuity issues. I'm gonna go ahead and say that's probably a part of writing a first book of something and then realizing, we could go a lot of places with this if maybe we made a few tweaks. So, y'all, I think you're really, really going to enjoy this. If you have enjoyed Percy Jackson, if you've enjoyed Harry Potter, maybe some of maybe it's just a matter of personal preference in some cases where, maybe you're not as into the space-related stuff versus the magic stuff. Maybe you're super into magic, not so into the space stuff. That's okay, and I think that personal preference will, of course, that's valid. But assuming that you're sort of into the the genre in general, this series is going to serve you super well. Today, we're going to be reading basically the first half of the first book. It is not terribly long, and as I said, the time that I spent with this during the prep was, it was really refreshing, because I was really, really anticipating jumping back in here and saying, okay, this is a bad book that I liked when I was younger because I was a kid. But it's not. This is a good book for young people. And so, I'm really excited to get back in here. I think I've mentioned before that there were a few series that really sort of meant a lot to me when I was younger. It started with, and I'm just talking about series here, but the earliest ones were the Boxcar Children, A to Z Mysteries, Magic Tree House. I think the Animorphs were something that I sort of came upon over time. We had an excellent local library, as a matter of fact, considering the size of our town. And I would go in there and grab a stack. Like, I would grab a good 1.5 2 foot tall stack of books every time I went down there, and that would be like once every couple of weeks, maybe once every 2 weeks. Grab a bunch of those, and it was a glorious time reading through the Animorphs. And there are, I want to say, like 50 or 60 odd in this series, and it grows up a lot. I was looking through the wiki as part of my prep as well, and man, just seeing sort of how some of this series turns out, like you enter this thinking and feeling that basically all the things we're going to cover today are really going to convey a sense of like, it's young folks with high stakes problems, but they're high stakes sort of presented in a pretty young, accessible way. But this series grows up a lot. So if you enter this thing, you can anticipate that you will come out the other side with with something impactful, rather than simply like, oh yeah, they traipsed through, they defeated the evil power wizard, and now it's over. That wasn't a rag on Harry Potter. Just like just a rag on silly little things. Oh, they blew up Death Planet, and now Death Planet is no more. So I think y'all are going to really enjoy this, as I mentioned. And without further ado, I think it's about time we commence, don't you? What do you think? Jem says, sorry, Sam, I'm listening to you too. I know. Hey, I see you chatting with Dahlia in there, and I want you to know I'm actually really pleased with stuff like that. Just knowing that people sort of meet up here, like it makes me feel like I kind of run like the local hangout. So hey, don't worry about it. Jem says the local young literature section, the library young literature section was my second home. Great place to escape reality and pretend to be normal. Indeed, I think I learned a lot from these series, and the more I look at this, I think I could probably trace some of my empathy to books like this one. I think this one was a good foundation. So, everybody, let's read this sucker. Welcome to Animorphs, Volume 1, The Invasion, by K.A. Applegate. Chapter 1. My name is Jake. That's my first name, obviously. I can't tell you my last name. It would be too dangerous. The controllers are everywhere. Everywhere. And if they knew my full name, they could find me and my friends, and then, well, let's just say I don't want them to find me. What they do to people who resist is too horrible to think about. I won't even tell you where I live. You'll just have to trust me that it's a real place, a real town. It may be your town. I'm writing this all down so that more people will learn the truth. Then maybe, somehow, the human race can survive until the Andalites return and rescue us, as they promised they would. Maybe. My life used to be pretty normal. Normal, that is, until one Friday night at the mall. I was there with Marco, my best friend. We were playing video games and hanging out at this cool store that sells comic books and stuff, the usual. Marco and I had run out of quarters for the games, right when he was ahead by lots of points. Mostly we're equally good at games. I have Sega at home, so I get lots of practice time in, but Marco had this amazing ability to analyze games and figure out all the little tricks. So sometimes he beats me. Or maybe I just wasn't concentrating very well. I had kind of a bad day at school. I tried out for the basketball team and didn't make the cut. It was no big deal, really, except that Tom, he's my big brother, he was this total legend on the junior high basketball team. Now he's the main scorer for the high school team, so everyone expected me to make the team easy. Only I didn't. Like I said, no big thing, but it was on my mind just the same. Lately, Tom and I hadn't been hanging out as much. Not like we used to, so I figured, if I get his old position on the team... Well, anyway, we were out of money and we were getting ready to head home when we ran into Tobias. Tobias was... I guess he's kind of a strange guy. He was new at school, he wasn't the toughest kid, so he got picked on a lot. I actually met Tobias when he had his head in the toilet. There were these two big guys holding him down and laughing while they flushed, sending Tobias's straggly blonde hair swirling around the bowl. I told the two creeps to step off, and ever since then, Tobias figured I was his friend. Oh, got a siren rolling through. Hold for sound. Bitterbud says, Jake. I feel so much for Jake in general, but especially early series. And Jem's... I I know what Gems actually wrote, but what it sort of seemed like Gems wrote was, grab your coffee, your popcorn lunch, whatever. I hope you have a delicious popcorn lunch, Gems. Wildcard says, first time hearing this series. I'm a sucker for YA fiction, though. I think you will be very pleased with this. Okay, it sounds like we're good sound-wise. You didn't actually, Gems. You wrote it correctly. It was just a matter of how I read the darn thing. Bitterbard got sushi, soda, and Animorphs. Who else is ready to tackle their day? I told the two creeps to step off, and ever since then, Tobias figured I was his friend. Hey, what's up? Tobias asked. I shrugged. Not much. We're heading home. Out of quarters, Marco commented. Certain people keep forgetting that the sleaze troll shows up right after you cross Netherford. So certain people keep losing the game. And losing our quarter. Marco kept jerking his thumb at me, just in case Tobias couldn't figure out who he meant by certain people. So, like, maybe I'll walk home with you guys? Tobias said. I said, sure, why not? We were heading for the exit when I spotted Rachel and Cassie. Rachel is kind of pretty, I guess. I mean, she's very pretty, although since she is my cousin, I don't really think about her that way. She's got blonde hair and blue eyes and that kind of very clean, wholesome look. She's one of those people who always knows the right clothes to wear and how to look like they just walked out of a fashion magazine that girls like. She's also very graceful because she takes gymnastics, even though she says she's too tall to ever be really good at it. Cassie is sort of the opposite. For one thing, she's usually wearing jeans and a plaid shirt or something else real casual. She's black and wears her hair very short most of the time. She had it longer for a while, but then she went back to short, which I like. Cassie is quieter than Rachel. More peaceful. Like she always understands everything on some different, more mystical level. I guess you could say I kind of like Cassie. Sometimes we sit together on the bus, even though I never really know what to say to her. You guys going home? I asked Rachel. You shouldn't go through the construction site by yourselves. I mean, being girls and all. That was a mistake. I should never have suggested to Rachel that she's weak or helpless. Rachel may look like Little Miss Teen Model or whatever, but she thinks she's Storm from the X-Men. Are you going to come and protect us, you big, strong man? She said. You think we're helpless just because... I'd appreciate it if they did walk with us. Cassie interrupted. I know you're not afraid of anything, Rachel, but I guess I am. Rachel couldn't say much about that. That's the way Cassie is. She always has the right words to stop any argument without making anyone feel bad. So, there we were. The five of us. Marco, Tobias, Rachel, Cassie, and me. 5 normal mall rats heading home. Sometimes I think about that one last moment when we were just normal kids. It was like it was a million years ago, like it was some totally different group of kids. You know what I was afraid of that night? I was afraid of admitting to Tom that I hadn't made the team. That was as scary as life got back then. 5 minutes later, life got a lot scarier. To get home from the mall, we could either go a long way around, which was the safe way, or we could cut through this abandoned construction site and hope that there weren't any axe murderers hanging out there. My mom and dad would have sworn to ground me until I'm 20 if they ever found out about me cutting through the construction site. So, anyway, we crossed the road and headed to the abandoned construction site. It was a big area surrounded on 2 sides by trees, with highway separating it from the main area. There's a broad open field between the construction site and the nearest houses. It's a very isolated place. Originally, it was supposed to be this new shopping center. Now, it's just all these half-finished buildings looking like a ghost town. There were huge piles of rusted steel beams, pyramids of giant concrete pipes, little mountains of dirt, deep pits that filled with black, muddy water, and a creaking, rusted construction crane that I had climbed once while Marco stayed below, telling me I was an idiot. It was a totally deserted place, full of shadows and sounds that made the hair on the back of your neck stand up. When Marco and I went there during the day, we always found these beer cans and liquor bottles. Sometimes we found the ashes of little campfires back in hidden nooks and crannies of the buildings. So we knew people came here at night. All of that was on my mind as we crept through the site. It was Tobias who saw it first. He had been walking along, gazing up at the sky. I guess he was looking at the stars or something. That's the way Tobias is sometimes, off in his own world. Suddenly, Tobias stopped. He was pointing almost straight up. "Look," he said. "What?" I didn't want to be distracted because I was pretty sure I heard the sound of a chainsaw killer creeping up behind us. "Just look," Tobias said. His voice was strange, amazed sounding, but serious at the same time. So I looked up, and there it was, a brilliant blue-white light that scooted across the sky, going fast at first, too fast for it to be an airplane, then slower and slower. "What is it?" Tobias shook his head. I don't know." I looked at Tobias, and he looked right back at me. We both knew what it was, but we didn't want to say it. Marco and Rachel would have laughed, we figured. But Cassie just blurted it right out. "It's a flying saucer." Believe it or not, that's the end of the first chapter. They're super short here in these first ones. I don't remember if they get longer later on or if they just sort of like they continue to divide longer arcs into tiny chapters. But no, they're really, really very like noticeably small here. So we're probably going to, we're going to be covering lots of chapters today. This is going to be, for those of you who are wondering, like, oh no, short chapters. Are we just doing 2 or 3? No, we're doing north of 10. North of 10 chapters today, which means if we take a long break in between each one, we're going to get messed up. So I'm just going to do a real quick, tiny little recap. And I will remind you all, okay, we're starting a new series here. Whether we finish this one later, I do not know. But as this is sort of an episode 1 of a thing, I want to remind you all, the voices take a while to get settled in, all right? They take a while for me. They will take a while sort of mentally for you, even though it may not feel like it. It is going to, some of these, especially if you love it. I'm actually really nervous, Bitterbard, what you're going to think of the voices because, some of them aren't going to match for you folks who have, like, spent a lot of time with this in your heart already. The voices that I use might not match, and part of that, as I have mentioned in the past, is just a matter of making sure my voices are differentiated. If I go with 2 very similar female voices, for instance, because those are the toughest for me to differentiate, 2 feminine voices that sound very, very similar. If I both made Rachel and Cassie like very, very like very local to one another, if I made them sound like they both came from the same place, it would be really tough for me to actually make them sound like 2 different human beings. And so, yeah, I have to. I'm going to be applying some different accents to things in places that might not be totally expected. Let them settle in. Okay, now, with that said, don't forget, folks, and hey, if this is the future and we have decided to embark on this thing full time, I would say welcome to Animorphs. First chapter, done. It's pretty cool to be coming back to read this. This is one that, because, like I said, Harry Potter, I didn't read that one until I was substantially older. This one I kind of caught like right at the time in my life that it was sort of designed to hit me, and I've got good memories. But I guess a quick bit of recap here. We have got these 5 folks who 2 of them are friends, but a lot of them are just sort of they know one another or they've recently met one another. So this isn't necessarily a group of like tight friends, but they are currently walking home from the mall through an abandoned construction site. And that's the review. Let's read the next chapter. Chapter 2. "A flying saucer?" Marco said. He'd laugh. That is, until he looked up. I could feel my own heart pounding in my chest. I felt weird and excited and afraid all at once. "It's coming this way," Rachel said. "It's hard to be sure." I could barely whisper. My mouth was so dry. "No, it's coming this way," Rachel said. She's got a very definite way of talking, like she's totally sure of everything she says. Rachel was right. Whatever it was coming closer. And it was slowing down. Now I could see pretty clearly what it looked like. "It's not exactly a flying saucer," I said. First of all, it wasn't that big. It was about as long as a school bus. The front end was a pod shaped almost like an egg. Extending from the back of the pod was a long, narrow shaft. There were two crooked, stubby wing-like things, and on the end of each wing was a long tube that glowed bright blue at the back end. The little spaceship looked almost cute. You know, kind of harmless, except that it had this sort of tail, a mean-looking tail that curved up and forward, coming to a point that looked as sharp as a needle. "That tail thing," I said. "It looks like a weapon." "Yeah, definitely," Marco agreed. The little ship kept coming nearer, getting slower all the time. "It's stopping," Rachel said. She had the same strange, not quite real tone in her voice that I had. Like we hadn't been able to believe what we were seeing. Like maybe we didn't want to believe. "I think it sees us," Marco said. "Should we run? Maybe we should run home and get a camera. You know how much money we could get for a video of a UFO? If we run, they might, I don't know, zap us with phasers on full power," I said. I meant it as a joke, kind of. "Phasers are only on Star Trek," Marco said, rolling his eyes the way he does when he thinks I'm a dweeb. Like he was some kind of expert on alien spaceships. Cool. The ship stopped and hovered almost directly over our heads, maybe 100 feet in the air. I could feel the hair on my head standing on its end. Then I glanced at Rachel. It was almost funny. She had this long blonde hair and it was sticking straight out in every direction. Only Cassie looked normal. "What do you think it is?" Marco asked. He sounded a little shakier, not so laid back now that the thing was so close. To be honest, I was scared too. A little scared, as in so terrified I couldn't move. But at the same time, it was all cool beyond any coolness ever. I mean, it was a spaceship. Right there, over my head. Tobias was actually grinning. But that's Tobias for you. He's never scared of weird stuff. It's the normal stuff he can't stand. "I think it's gonna land," he said, this huge smile on his face. His eyes were bright and excited, and his blonde hair was standing up in clumps. The ship began to descend. "It's coming right at us," I cried. I had to fight the urge to run, yammering across the shield. Yammering? That's a word I've only ever heard spoken out loud by people in the Midwest. I had to fight an urge to run, yammering across the field all the way home, where I could crawl into my bed and pull the covers over my head, but I knew this was an important, amazing thing. I knew I had to stay and see it all. I guess the others felt the same way because we all just stood there as the ship hummed and glowed and slowly settled down into an open space between piles of junk and tumbled walls. I noticed there were black burn marks on the top of the pod section. Some of the skin of the pod had melted. It touched the ground and instantly the blue lights went off. Rachel's hair fell back down to her neck. "It's not very big, is it?" Rachel whispered. "It's about," I tried to think, "about 3 or 4 times as big as our minivan." "We should tell someone," Marco said. "I mean, this is kind of major, you know? Spaceships don't just land in the construction site every day. We should call the cops or the army or the president or something. We'd be totally famous. We'll be on Letterman for sure." "Yeah, you're right," I agreed. "We should call someone." But none of us moved. None of us was going to walk away from a spaceship. "I wonder if we should try to talk to it?" Rachel suggested. She was standing there with her hands on her hips, looking at the spaceship like it was a puzzle she was trying to figure out. "I mean, we should communicate, if that's even possible. Tobias nodded. He stepped forward and held out his hands. I guess he was showing whatever was in the ship that he wasn't carrying any kind of weapon or anything. "It's safe," he said in a loud, clear voice. "We won't hurt you." "Do you think they speak English?" I wondered. "Well, everyone speaks English on Star Trek," Cassie said in a nervous laugh. Tobias tried again. "Please come out. We won't hurt you."
"I know."
I froze. Okay, I had definitely heard someone say, "I know," only there hadn't been any sound. I mean, I heard it, but I didn't really hear it. Maybe this was all a dream. I looked kind of sideways at Cassie. She looked at me. Our eyes met. She had heard it too. I looked at Rachel. She was turning her head back and forth like she was looking for where that sound, it wasn't a sound, could have come from. I started to get that sick, twisty feeling in my stomach. "Did everyone hear that?" Tobias whispered. We all nodded at once, very slowly. "Can you come out?" Tobias asked in his loud, talking to aliens voice.
"Yes. Do not be afraid."
"We won't be frightened," Tobias said. "Speak for yourself," I muttered. The others giggled nervously. A thin arc of light appeared, a doorway, opening slowly in the smooth side of the pod out of the ship. I stood there, totally hypnotized. I just stared, waiting. The opening grew like a crescent moon at first, and then a full, bright circle. And then he appeared. My first reaction was that someone had cloned a person and a deer together. The creature had a head and shoulders and arms that were more or less where they should have been, though the skin was a pale shade of blue. But below that he had fur, a mix of blue and tan covering a four-legged body that really did look like it belonged to a deer, or maybe a small horse. He ducked his head out the doorway, and I could see that the fairly normal-looking parts of him weren't all that normal. For a start, he had no mouth, just 3 vertical slits, and then there were his eyes. 2 of them were where they should have been, although they were a glittery green color that was kind of shocking. But the real shock were the other eyes. He had what seemed like horns, only on top of each horn was an eye. The horns could move, twisting to point the eyes front and back or up and down. I thought the eyes were bad until I saw the tail. It was like a scorpion's tail, thick and powerful looking. On the end was a wickedly curved, very sharp-looking horn or stinger. It reminded me of the alien spaceship. It had seemed kind of cute and harmless till you noticed the tail. The alien seemed kind of harmless at first glance, too. And then you saw that tail of his, and you thought, whoa, this guy could do some damage if he wanted. "Hello?" Tobias said. His voice was gentle, like he was talking to a baby. He was grinning. I realized I was smiling, too. And at that same moment, I realized there were tears in my eyes. I can't really describe how it felt, except it seemed like the alien was someone I had known forever. Like an old friend I hadn't seen in a long time.
"Hello,"
the alien said, in that silent way that you only heard inside your head. "Hi," we all said back. To my surprise, the alien staggered. He fell out of the ship to the ground. Tobias tried to grab him and hold him up, but the alien slipped from his grasp and fell back to the dirt. "Look," Cassie cried. She pointed at the burn that covered half the alien's right side. "He's hurt."
"Yes. I am dying,"
he said. "Can we help you? We can call an ambulance or something," Marco said. "We can bandage that wound," Cassie said. Jake, give me your shirt. We can tear it up and make bandages. Cassie's parents are both veterinarians, and she's totally into animals. Now, this was an animal? Not exactly, anyway.
No. I will die. The wound is fatal.
No, I cried. You can't die. You're the first alien to ever come to Earth. You can't die. I didn't know why I was so upset. I just knew that way deep down it hurt me to think of him dying.
I am not the first. There are many, many others.
Other aliens? Like you? Tobias demanded. The alien shook his big head slowly, side to side.
Not like me.
Then he cried out in pain, a silent sound that echoed horribly inside my mind. For a moment, I had actually felt him dying.
Not like me.
He repeated.
They are different.
Different? How? I said. I will remember his answer forever. He said,
They have come to destroy you.
And that's the end of chapter 2. As you can see, we're going to move along here at a very steady clip. But I'm going to check in with chat, see what y'all are thinking about this. Jem says, cue to be afraid. Very afraid. Bitterbard says, let's see, I really like the alien's voice. See, not even using their name. Spoiler avoidance. Hey, I appreciate it. But, yes, indeed. That one, I looked for a long time for that one. I probably did the most hunting for this voice of, like, any voice I've ever done. Except for maybe Kronos. But, yes. No, I think I found one that it seems right. As opposed to just, like, a silly approximation of it. It seems like this is a voice where, you know, barring the sort of weird clicking that has to go on in the background for me to engage it and that sort of thing. Other than all that stuff, it seems like one that could actually, like... It wouldn't seem so out of place if there were, like, an animated version of this. You know what I mean? Sanders says, I got the feeling that it might not be a totally happy story. Dahlia says, fantastic voice you found from. Yeah, I'm pretty excited about that. Okay, now, let's jump back into it. A tiny bit of review. 30-second review. It might not even take me that long. We got these 5 kids. They're not exactly friends. Some of them are, some of them aren't. They're walking across this field into a construction site as a shortcut, and they see this UFO. This UFO has just landed. It ends up on the ground in front of them, and they are now talking with this alien that appears to be some sort of... It looks like a sort of a centaur with the sort of lower body of a deer or a small horse, upper body of a person, except even the upper body looks strange because it's got, you know, eye stalks like a snail does in addition to its normal eyes, and no proper mouth, and then also its tail is this long, like, scorpion stinger thing. And Gems is starting bean soup. Gems has put bean soup recipe in the creativity channel, I believe. Gems, thank you very much. And I saved those. I saved those little bacon rinds, so we'll see what I can put those to use for. All right, let's launch back in. Chapter 3.
They have come to destroy you.
It was strange, the way we all just knew he was telling the truth. No one said, no way, or you're making it up. We all just knew. He was dying, and he was trying to warn us of something terrible.
They are called Yerks. They are different from us. Different from you as well.
Are you telling us they're already here on Earth? Rachel demanded.
Many are here. Hundreds, maybe more.
Why hasn't anybody noticed them? He said reasonably. I think somebody would have mentioned it at school.
You do not understand. Yerks are different. They have no body, like yours or mine. They live in the bodies of other species. They are...
I guess he couldn't think of a word to explain Yerks, so he closed his eyes and seemed to concentrate. Suddenly, a bright picture popped into my head. I saw a gray-green, slimy thing like a snail without its shell. Only bigger, the size of a rat, maybe. It wasn't a pretty picture. I'm guessing that was a Yerk, Marco said. Either that or it was a very big wad of slimy chewing gum.
They are almost powerless without hosts.
Suddenly, we felt a blast of pain straight from the alien. I could also feel his sadness. He knew his time was almost up.
The Yerks are parasites. They must have a host to live in. In this form, they are known as controllers. They enter the brain and are absorbed into it, taking over the host's thoughts and feelings. They try to get the host to accept them voluntarily. It's easier that way. Otherwise, the host may be able to resist, at least a little.
Are you saying they take over human bodies? Rachel asked. People. These things take over their bodies. Hey, look, this is serious stuff, I said. You shouldn't be telling us. We're just kids, you know? This is something the government should know about.
We had hoped to stop them,
the alien continued.
Swarms of their bug fighters were waiting when our dome ship came out of Z-space. We knew of their mothership and were ready for the bug fighters, but the Yerks surprised us. They had hidden a powerful blade ship in a crater of your moon. We fought, but we lost. They have tracked me here. They will soon be here to eliminate all traces of me and my ship.
How can I do that? Cassie wondered. The alien seemed to smile with his eyes.
Their Dracon beams will leave nothing but a few molecules of this ship. This body,
he said.
I sent a message to my home world. We Andalites fight the Yerks wherever they go throughout the universe. My people will send help, but it may take a year, even more, and by then, the Yerks will have control of this planet. After that, there is no hope. You must tell people. You must warn your people.
Another spasm of pain ripped through him, and we all knew he was nearly gone. No one is ever going to believe us, Marco said hopelessly. He looked at me and shook his head. No way. He was right. If these Yerks were here to wipe out the Andalite ship, how on earth could we ever convince people? They would think we were either nuts or on drugs. I don't care if he thinks he's going to die. We have to try and help him, Rachel said. We can get him to the hospital, or maybe Cassie's parents?
There is no time. No time,
the Andalite said. Then his eyes brightened.
Perhaps.
What?
Go into my ship. You will see a small blue box. Very plain. Bring it to me. Quickly, I have very little time, and the Yerks will find me soon.
We all looked at each other. Who was going to be the one to actually go inside the ship? Somehow we all seemed to agree it would be me. Actually, I didn't agree, but everyone else did. Go ahead, Tobias said. I want to stay with him. He knelt beside the Andalite and placed a comforting hand on the alien's narrow shoulder. I looked at the doorway into the spacecraft. I glanced at Cassie. Go ahead, she said, sending me a smile. You're not scared. She was wrong. I was plenty scared, but the way she smiled at me, I wasn't about to weasel out. I walked over to the door of the ship and looked inside. It was surprisingly simple. It looked cozy almost. Everything was a creamy color with rounded edges and shapes tended to be oval. That was one of the things that helped me to spot the box so easily. It was sky blue and square, maybe 4 inches to each side. It seemed kind of heavy for being so small. I stepped up into the ship. There was no chair, just sort of an open space where I guess the Andalite stood on his 4 hooves while he worked the few controls. There weren't a lot of buttons or anything. I wondered if the Andalite controlled the ship with his thoughts. I quickly reached for the box and started to head back outside, but then something caught my eye. It was a small 3-dimensional picture. 4 Andalites standing all together, looking like a strange gathering of deer with solemn faces. 2 of them looked like very small kids. I realized this was a picture of the Andalite's family. It filled me with sadness to think that he was here, dying, 1,000,000 miles away from his family. Dying because he had tried to protect the people of Earth. I felt a small flame of anger against the Yeerks, or controllers, or whatever they were, for causing this. I went back to the circle of my friends. Here's the box, I told the Andalite.
Thank you.
Was that your family? That picture?
Yes.
I'm real sorry, I said. What else could I say?
There is something I may be able to do to help you fight the Yeerks.
What? Rachel demanded.
I know that you are young. I know that you have no power with which to resist the controllers, but I may be able to give you some small powers that may help.
We all looked at each other. All except Tobias, who never took his gaze off the alien.
If you wish, I can give you powers that no other human being has ever had.
Powers? What was that supposed to mean?
It is a piece of Andalite technology that the Yeerks do not have.
The Andalite explained.
A technology that enables us to pass unnoticed in many parts of the universe. The power to morph. We have never shared this power, but your need is great.
Morph? Morph how? Rachel asked. Her eyes narrowed.
To change your bodies,
The Andalite said.
To become any other species, any animal.
Marco laughed derisively. Become animals? Marco isn't the most accepting person in the world.
You will only need to touch a creature to acquire its DNA pattern, and you will be able to become that creature. It requires concentration and determination, but if you're strong, you can do it. There are limitations, problems, dangers even, but there is no time to explain it all. No time. You will have to learn for yourselves. But first, do you wish to receive this power?
He's kidding, right? Marco asked me. No, Tobias said softly. He's not kidding. This is nuts, Marco said. This whole thing is nuts. Yerks and spaceships and slugs taking over people's brains and andalites and the power to change animals? Give me a break. Yeah, it's beyond weird, I agreed. We're off the map of weirdness by this point, Rachel said. But unless we're all just dreaming, I think we better deal with this. He's dying, Tobias reminded us. I'll do it, Cassie said. That surprised me. Cassie wasn't usually so quick to decide, but I guess, like Tobias, she felt the truth of what the Andalite was saying. I think we should all decide together, I suggested. One way or the other. What's that? Rachel asked. She was looking up toward the stars. Far, far ahead, 2 pinpoints of bright red light were shooting across the sky.
Yerks,
the Andalite said the word in our minds, and we could feel his hatred. Boop! Chapter 3! It moves really quickly, doesn't it? We bop through these chapters super quick. I think in other series it's possible that these would be broken up into longer chapters and fewer of them, but I think this is, much like a lot of these series, these are designed to start when a person is pretty young and grow with them over time. Like I've mentioned before, it definitely does grow over time. Wildcard says, I'm loving this. I am glad. Jem says, I like Rachel. Yeah, y'all are going to be... That is okay, y'all know how I get with books, right? I've mentioned to you before, I really enjoy... And of course, I'm going to do my disclaimer. Yes, in good literature, all these things are tied together. But if we were to separate these out in component parts, I really like talking about themes. I like the plot lines. I like the stories that are told in here. But what I love are the characters. I love watching the characters, seeing how they change, seeing how they progress, seeing their flaws and how they handle them. And this is a series that, when it comes to characters presented to young people, it does not disappoint. It just doesn't. You would expect it to. I think there are certainly other series that do disappoint, where you might sort of get in there and find that these characters don't have a lot going on. You might watch them and how they behave, and they don't really change over time, or they don't really seem to grow, or maybe they don't really have flaws, or maybe they do have flaws, but there are convenient ways to sort of undercut those, the impact of those flaws every time. And so it doesn't really feel real. It feels like you're reading, kind of a kid's story, right? It feels like you're reading sort of more of a bedtime story than an actual narrative. And it's really nice. It's really nice to get into something like this and start with these characters, as they are very young and written for young people, and pretty easy to understand. But over time, they grow in really dramatic ways. Bitterbard says, the times Animorphs came out with was one we're not used to anymore. Animorphs came out before YA was a genre, before the young adult literature was a genre, when there was just kids literature and adult literature, nothing in between. It was meant to be something you could publish every month at school book fairs, something a kid could pick up, a new issue once a month, very bite-sized content. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed, Bitterbard. Yes, this was one of the things that helped to lay a foundation for things like Harry Potter, frankly. This similar era. If I remember correctly, I might be getting my dates wrong, but I don't think that I am. I believe this predates Harry Potter, and if my memory serves me properly, and frankly, even if I'm off about that, just in general, this and Harry Potter, etc., these built a genre that we really know well in the world now, with the Pretties and Hunger Games and all sorts of books, like Artemis Fowl, although that one might have been one of the foundation layers as well. But some of these things that have come after, we now very clearly recognize there's kids books, and then there's adult books, and there's also definitely a big genre in the middle. Because it turns out Young adults actually really like to read. Teens like to read if you give them something good to read. Bitterbard says Harry Potter actually helped Animorphs and vice versa, the same publication company in the U.S. Now that I did not know. Bitterbard, I think, is going to be our expert, our Sherpa through the lands of Animorphs, because I think Bitterbard is, I read these when I was younger. I do not know if I completed the entire series because I don't think our library had every single book, and there wasn't as much of like a super present exchange program, at least for the young people. Yeah, so I don't think I caught all of them, but I do think of the, I think 50 or 60 odd books that there are in the main series, I'm pretty sure I caught about 95% of them. Jem says, I remember wanting to write YA books when I was younger because of the lack of it. Yeah, I think it is you can kind of see a hole in the middle there, and frankly, it is a very important genre. I hold it as a very important genre. I'm sure that there's plenty of room to criticize the books that exist in the genre, but at the same time, I think part of any art is sort of a recognition of your audience, and I think the audience is, young people. They're at a very, very specific time in their lives when they weren't before, and really they won't be again. And it's in a different way. Like, obviously you're only 38 once as well, but I think to be a teenager is something very different. It is when, as we've said many times before, you are starting to be kind of expected to hold your own ideals, and to have stories that communicate directly to folks in that position, super important. Bitterbard says, also, here's my precaution. Animorphs is not suitable for children under 8. I started reading it when I was 5 or 6. Do not recommend. And Bitterbard, I'm going to trust your judgment there. So I would say, yeah, that seems like a pretty solid warning. I don't remember why. I think there's some very spooky, creepy stuff that comes up, and that might be it, Bitterbard. But yeah, Bitterbard, a good warning. I appreciate it. All right, next chapter we cruise on through. Chapter 4 out of more than 10 chapters today, so let's get in. A quick bit of review. Let's see. Some kids walking across an abandoned construction lot. They find an alien. The alien has crashed. The alien has warned them that there is an invading force of these parasitic slugs, essentially, but they take people over. They are called Yeerks, and when they take someone over, that individual is called a controller. So these aliens are here on Earth. They're here to take over, and this one Andalite is not going to be able to stop them. He's sent in he's put out a call to his people out in the stars somewhere, but it will take them at least a year. And by the time they arrive, if nobody does anything, the Yeerks will have already taken over. So there we go. And now the Yeerks are arriving. Chapter 4.
Yeerks.
The twin red lights slowed down. They turned in a circle and came back toward us.
There is no more time. You must decide.
We have to do this, Tobias said. How else can we fight these controllers? This is so insane, Marco said. Insane! I'd like more time, but we don't have that choice, Rachel said. I'm for it. What do you say, Jake? Cassie asked me. It was odd, like suddenly I was the one who had to decide for everyone. I looked up at the Yeerk ships. What had the Andalite called them? Bug fighters? They were circling closer, like dogs sniffing for a scent. I looked down at the Andalite and remembered the picture of his family. Would they even know what happened to him? I looked at each of the people around me. My usually funny, occasionally annoying best friend Marco, Rachel, my smart, pretty, confident cousin, and Cassie, who everyone knew liked animals more than she liked people. Finally, I looked at Tobias. It was weird, the feeling I had at that moment, staring at him. A chill or something. We have to, Tobias said to me. And slowly, I nodded. Yes. We have no choice.
Then each of you press your hand against one of the sides of the square.
We did. 5 hands, each pressed against one side. Then a 6th hand, different from ours, with too many fingers.
Do not be afraid,
the Andalite said. Something like a shock, only pleasurable, seemed to run through me. A tingle that almost made me laugh.
Go now,
the Andalite said.
Only remember this. Never remain in animal form for more than 2 of your Earth hours. Never. That is the greatest danger of morphing. If you stay longer than 2 hours, you will be trapped, unable to return to human form.
2 hours, I repeated. Suddenly, some new fear washed through the Andalite's mind. Linked as I was to him, I could feel the dread that crawled up my spine. He was staring up into the sky with his main eyes. Something else was up there with the bug fighters.
Visser 3. He comes.
What? I was shaking with this new terror. What's a Visser? Who's a Visser?
Go now. Run. Visser 3 is here. He is the most deadly of our enemies. Of all Yeerks, he alone has the power to morph. The same power you now have. Run!
No, we'll stay with you, Rachel said firmly. Maybe we can help. Again, it was as if the alien was smiling at us with his eyes.
No. You must save yourselves. Save yourselves and your planet. The Yeerks are here.
We all looked up, craning our necks. Sure enough, the 2 red lights were sinking toward us, and they had been joined by a 3rd ship, far larger, black as a shadow within a shadow. But how are we supposed to fight these controllers? Rachel demanded.
You must find a way. Now run.
I jerked from the force of his command. He's right! Run! I yelled. We all ran, all but Tobias, who knelt beside the Andalite and took his hand. The Andalite pressed his other hand up against Tobias's head. Tobias rocked back like he'd been shocked. Then he too was up and running, stumbling all over the loose junk and potholes of the construction site. A beam of red light snapped on. It was a spotlight from one of the bug fighters. The beam lit up the fallen Andalite and his ship. A spotlight from the second bug fighter joined the first, and the Andalite shone brilliant as a star. I hit the dirt hard. I saw my leg lit up within the circle of that spotlight. I yanked it to me and crawled fast, scraping my elbows and knees over sharp stones. The 5 of us crouched behind a low, crumbled wall, afraid to move, afraid to look, but just as afraid to look away. Slowly, the bug fighters descended. It was easy to see where they'd gotten their nickname. They were slightly larger than the Andalite ship fighter and looked like legless cockroaches. There were small windows like eyes and the forward thrust head of the bug. And on either side of the head were very long, very sharp, serrated spears. The Yeerk bug fighters touched down, one on either side of the Andalite ship. Okay, you can wake me up now, Marco said in a rattled whisper. I've had enough of this dream. The larger ship began to descend. I don't know what it was about that ship, but as it got closer, I started to feel like I couldn't breathe. I tried to suck in a deep lungful of air, and I couldn't. I tried to swallow, and I couldn't. I wanted to run, but my legs were jelly. I was shaking from a fear so deep it was like nothing I'd ever experienced before. It was the same fear that the Andalite had shown when he'd realized Visser 3 was coming. The ship settled toward the ground. It looked like it was going to land directly on a big rusted earth mover parked there, but as the Visser's ship descended, the earth mover just sizzled and disappeared. Visser 3's ship was built like some ancient weapon. It reminded me of one of those battle axes the old-time knights used when they were hacking off the heads of their foes. There was a main part, like the handle of an axe, with a big triangular point on the front. That part had to be the bridge. At the rear were 2 huge scimitar wings. It was 8 or 9 times the size of the bug fighters. The blade ship landed. A door opened. Cassie started to scream. I clamped my hand over her mouth. They leapt from the ship, whirling and thrusting and slicing the air, creatures that looked like walking weapons. They stood on 2 bent-back legs and had 2 very long arms. On each arm there were curved horn blades growing out of the wrist and elbow. There were other blades at the bent-back knees and 2 more blades at the end of their tails. They had feet like a Tyrannosaurus Rex. But it was the head that got your attention. A snake-like neck, a mouth that was almost a falcon's beak, and from the forehead, 3 dagger-like horns raked forwards.
Hork-Bajir controllers.
I jumped, hearing the Andalite's words in my mind again. They were fainter than before, strained like someone yelling from far away. "Did you guys..." I asked. Rachel nodded. "Yeah."
The Hork-Bajir are good people, despite their fearsome looks.
The Andalite said.
But they have been enslaved by the Yeerks. Each of them now carries a Yeerk in his head. They are to be pitied.
"Pity, right," Rachel said grimly. "They're walking killing machines, look at them." But our attention was drawn away by a new form that crept and slithered and shimmied out of the blade ship.
Taxon controllers,
the Andalite said. I knew he was trying to tell us all he could, even to the end. Trying to prepare us for what we were up against.
The Taxons are evil.
"Yeah," Marco muttered. "I think I would have guessed that." They were like massive centipedes, twice as long as a full-grown man, so big around that if you tried to hug one, your arms wouldn't even make it halfway. Not that anybody would ever want to. They had dozens of legs that supported 2/3 of their bodies. The upper third was held upright, and there were rows of legs that became smaller with little lobster claw hands. Around the top of their disgusting tubular bodies were 4 eyes, each like a wiggling globule of red jello. At the very end, pointing straight up into the air, was a red mouth, ringed by hundreds of tiny teeth. Hork-Bajir and Taxons poured from the blade ship, spreading out around the area like well-trained Marines. They were holding small pistol-sized things that were definitely weapons. They formed a ring around the Andalite and his ship. Suddenly, one of the Hork-Bajir came straight toward us. He took one big bounding step and he was practically on top of us. I hugged the dirt like it was my last hope. I wished I could dig a hole. I saw a flash of Marco's face. His eyes were huge, his lips were drawn back in what could have been a grin, except I knew it was an expression of pure terror. Disgusting. Some really nasty stuff here, right? We are meeting some real nasty boys coming off of this ship. Okay, let's keep on rolling. I think I want to get at least to, well, I know how far I want to get before we take our break, but I guess to say it out loud would be a spoiler, wouldn't it? Y'all, Dahlia says, well, Dahlia's talking to Wildcard. Wildcard says, oh, snap, I feel like that rule is going to reappear. Dahlia says, that was my first thought, too. I always think if a rule is mentioned, it acts like a Chekhov's gun. If you don't mention it, it won't play in later. Yes, I think so. Yes, if there's a rule like this mentioned, I think you can guess it's going to be important. It's going to be important. And if you know what a Chekhov's gun is, then you might know precisely how it will be important. But I'm not going to go into that now. I'm not going to go into that at this precise moment. Rubik says, well, dang, you're streaming. Hello, I am indeed streaming, Rubik. Don't forget, everyone, it is Book Fair. That's why I'm streaming. It's Book Fair. Now, I will tell you all, I wish I had a little tiny violin to play, but it's the last day of Book Fair. This week has gone by really quickly. It has been so exciting, but Rubik says, you're on like every day. It's sick. I am during book fair. This is going to be the last day of book fair. Of course, as I've mentioned, I could do another week of this if it weren't for things outside of my control. But y'all, if you want to know more about book fair, go ahead and follow the link that's about to pop up in chat here. You can use the BF command at any time. That will tell you about book fair, but at its heart, it is just a great time for me to take all the things that I have made available to patrons over on Patreon and open those up to the world. And now we have got book fair, and every stream from book fair, everything that I am going to be posting anywhere, some of them can't be posted anywhere, just a couple, but basically everything that I can post is going to be over on Patreon, available to patrons at any level. But in addition to that, there are behind the scenes things that are going to be that are currently up there. I'm going to be doing more because, of course, I have not given y'all a tour of my office, so you're going to get a tour of the chop shop coming up soon. There are side karaoke's up there. As a matter of fact, a bunch of them are going to be uploaded very, very quickly. And then, of course, like I said, beginning next week, all of these streams are going to be up on Patreon for patrons at any level, top to bottom. And then, of course, through the rest of the year, we are going to be continuing to add things that are available to different patrons. We have got the Discord roles that are available to the very lowest level, and those will give you access to the private patron chats over in Discord, in addition to all of the archive chats on Discord. And we've got quite a few of those. As you move on up to the next tiers, you've got behind the scenes videos, and move up, you've got first looks at new projects like the Shelf Confidence podcast. We continue to head up, and at every single level, top to bottom, once again, you can go ahead and throw in your script for sound bites. So, if you want to know more about sound bites, there is a post that will be up there. It's not up there yet, but that will sort of illuminate what precisely that is and how precisely it works. But suffice it to say, you can send me a script every month and tell me exactly how you want it read, and I will read it for you. Whether it's a Tumblr meme or a script that you're writing for a dramatic show. So let me see what y'all want me to read out. Whether you wrote it, somebody else wrote it, I definitely want to see what y'all want to hear in my voice, or voices, plural. I'll even throw some voice mod on there if you send me some direction. The deadline for those are going to be the 5th of every month, but like I said, there'll be a post up there in a bit. I've got a whole bunch of draft posts just hanging out in Patreon for when they're ready. But finally, folks, I would really encourage you just to check out Patreon in general. I want to be really clear that Patreon is not just like it's not just like a donation site. It is a place where I want it to be fun. I want to add more and more fun stuff over there. And the more you sort of check it out, even if you're not going to become a patron, the more you can give me feedback about what you'd like to see over there. You know, if you're looking over there thinking like, you know what, it would really be cool if Sam would put together like some lessons on how he does his voice acting or how he streams in general. That's the sort of feedback I would love to hear. So just go ahead and check it out, even if you don't intend to become a patron. But I do hope that once you head over there, maybe you'll see something you like. So, folks, I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you take a look over at the merch as well. And if you want to know more about that, please follow that bottom link there that's just popped up in chat. That will give you a full post on exactly what the merch situation is over there. Because this is my very first run of Sidecar Stories merch. It is beautiful. It's art by Holly Rose. And I hope you enjoy. So, folks, let's jump back in here. We're in the midst of a bit of a chase, or I should say, not a chase, like a hunt, basically. It's kind of a chase, a little bit. It's a stealth mish. They're on a stealth mish. They have had to leave their Andalite friend here. Of course, this is a group of kids who have been walking home from the mall through a construction site. They see a crash landing of a UFO. They meet the alien that's inside, and the alien warns them that there are invaders on the way right now. And then it gives them this sort of power, it claims. He gives them this power, and then they have to flee. And Bitterbard says, I popped some old illustrations of attacks on an Andalite in the Discord. Oh, fantastic. Oh, you did these. Wonderful. Hey, Courier 6, if we jump back into this, I'm going to ask you if you want to throw some more of these on screen, because, you know, if we end up doing the Animorphs as a prolonged series, I mean, I'm definitely going to need art, you know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? Okay. Did I mysteriously land on exactly the right one? My OBS is frozen up, but I think I landed exactly where I need to be. So before it fixes itself, I'm going to just jump right in. Chapter 5.
The Hork-Bajir pointed his gun, or whatever it was, around in the darkness. His snake head swerved left and right, trying to penetrate the gloom.
Silence!
The Andalite warned us.
Hork-Bajir do not see well in darkness, but their hearing is very good.
The Hork-Bajir moved closer still. He was 6 feet away now, with just the low wall between us. He had to have heard my heart pounding. Maybe he didn't know what the sound was. Maybe he didn't recognize the sounds of 5 terrified kids whose knees were quivering and teeth were chattering. Kids who were breathing in short, sudden gasps. I was sure I was going to die, right then. I could see in my mind the way those vicious wrist and elbow blades were going to slice my head from my body. If you've never been really afraid, let me tell you, it does things to you. It takes over your mind and your body. You want to scream. You want to run. You want to wet your pants. You want to throw yourself down on the ground and cry and beg, please, 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 please don't kill me. And if you think you're brave, well, wait till you're cowering a few feet from a monster who can turn you into coleslaw in about 3 seconds flat. But then the Andalite's voice was in my head again.
Courage, my friends.
And this warm, I don't have the words to explain it. It was just this warmth that spread all through me. It was like when you were a little kid and you had terrible nightmares and you've woken up screaming. You know how you used to feel better when your mom or dad would turn on the light and come in and sit beside you on the bed? That's what it was like. I mean, I was still terrified. The Hork-Bajir was still there, so real and so deadly. I could hear him breathing. I could smell him, but at the same time, I could feel the panic coming under control. I could feel the strength flowing from the doomed Andalite. He was letting us borrow some of his courage, even though he must have been afraid himself. The Hork-Bajir moved away. Something new was coming from the blade ship. Shaking and chattering, I rose high enough to look over the low wall. Every Hork-Bajir and every Taxon was turned toward the ship now. They're all standing at attention, I whispered. How can you tell? Marco whispered back. Who knows when a jelly-eyed centipede or a walking salad shooter from hell is standing at attention? Then he appeared.
Visser 3,
the Andalite said. Visser 3 was an Andalite. Or at least he was an Andalite controller. What the... Rachel said. Isn't that an Andalite?
Only once has a Yeerk been able to take control of an Andalite body,
the Andalite said.
There is only one Andalite controller. That one is Visser 3.
Visser 3 walked confidently toward the wounded Andalite. The Visser seemed so much like the Andalite, it was hard to tell them apart at first. He had the same mouthless face, the same extra eye stalks that turned here and there, checking out every direction, the same powerful yet sleek four-legged body, and the same wicked tail. But if the Visser looked like any normal Andalite, he felt different. It was like he was wearing a mask, only you just knew underneath the fake sweetness of the mask there was something twisted and foul.
Well.
Visser 3 said. I almost had a heart attack when I realized I was hearing the Visser's thoughts. Can he hear our thoughts? Cassie whispered. If he can, we're so dead I don't even want to think about it, Rachel told her.
He cannot hear your thoughts,
the Andalite said.
As long as you don't direct them to him. You hear his thoughts because he's broadcasting them for all to hear. This is a great victory for him. So he wants all to hear. What have we here? A meddling Andalite.
Visser 3 looked more closely at the Andalite's ship.
But no ordinary Andalite warrior. Prince Elfangor, Srinyal Shamtu, if I am not mistaken. An honor to meet you. You're a legend. How many of our fighters have you shredded? 7? Or was it 8 by the time the battle ended?
The Andalite didn't answer, but I had the feeling maybe it had been more than 8.
The very last Andalite in this sector of space. Yes, I'm afraid your dome ship has been completely destroyed. Completely. I watched it burn as it fell into the atmosphere of this little world. There will be others,
the Andalite prince said. The Visser took a step closer to the Andalite.
Yes. And when they come, it will be too late. This world will be mine, my own contribution to the Yerk Empire, our greatest conquest, and then I'll be Visser One. What do you want with these humans?
The Andalite asked.
You have your Taxan allies. You have your Hork-Bajir slaves. And other slaves from other worlds. Why these people? Because there are so many, and they are so weak.
Visser 3 sneered.
Billions of bodies, and they have no idea what's happening. With this many hosts, we can spread throughout the universe. Unstoppable billions of us. We'll have to build 1,000 new Yerk pools just to raise Yerks for half this number of bodies. Face it, Andalite, you have fought well and bravely, but you have lost.
Visser 3 stepped right up to the Andalite. I could feel the Andalite's fear. But rather than cower, he fought the pain of his wound and climbed to his feet. He knew he was going to die. He wanted to die on his feet, looking at his enemy in the face. But Visser 3 was not done taunting his foe.
I promise you one thing, Prince Alfangor. When we have this planet with its rich harvest of bodies, we will move against the Andalite homeworld. I will personally hunt down your family, and I will personally oversee the placement of my most faithful lieutenants in their heads. I hope that they will resist, so that I can hear their minds scream.
The Andalite struck. His tail whipped up and over so fast you couldn't really see it. The Visser twisted his head aside. The Andalite's tail blade missed the Visser's head by a bare half-inch, but it sliced into his shoulder. Blood, or something like blood, sprayed from the wound. "Yes!" I hissed. I could hear the Visser's howl of pain in my head. At the same time, a blinding beam of blue light shot from the tail of the Andalite ship. It sliced into the nearest bug fighter. Hork-Bajir and Taxans scattered. Even crouching behind the wall, I could feel a wave of blistering heat. The bug fighter sizzled and disappeared.
Fire!
Visser 3 yelled.
Burn his ship!
The night exploded in blinding light. Red beams lanced from the blade ship and the remaining bug fighter. The Andalite ship glowed and with strange slowness disintegrated. Then, in the flash of the glow of Dracon beams, I saw, or thought I saw, humans. A small group of them, maybe 3 or 4, back in the shadows behind the Visser. "There are people over there," I told Marco. What? Are they prisoners?
Take the Andalite.
Visser 3 ordered his soldiers.
Hold him for me.
3 big Hork-Bajir grabbed the Andalite and held him down. Their wrist blades were at his throat, but they knew better than to kill him. That was to be Visser 3's personal privilege. Then we saw why a Yirk as powerful as Visser 3 would inhabit the only captured Andalite body. As we watched, Visser 3 began to morph. His Andalite head grew larger, much larger. 4 horse-like legs merged into 2 and then expanded, each leg becoming as big around as a redwood tree. The delicate Andalite arms sprouted and became tentacles. "It's not real," Cassie whispered. "It's not real." In the hideously bloated head, a mouth appeared. It was filled with teeth as long as your arm. The mouth grew wider and wider, becoming a monstrous, terrifying grin. There was nothing left of the Andalite body. A monster had taken its place. The roar of the beast Visser 3 made the ground shake. I covered my ears with my hands. My teeth rattled from the sound. I heard someone whimpering. It was me. "No, no, no, no," I heard Cassie whispering over and over again. "No, no, 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 no." Visser 3 had become a monster that made the Hork-Bajir and Taxons look like harmless toys. He reached out with one thick tentacle and grabbed the Andalite by the neck. "Don't look," Rachel said to her. She put her arm around Cassie's shoulder and held her close. Then she reached for Tobias and took his hand. I guess you never really know someone till you see them scared. And even scared to death, with tears running down her face, Rachel had strength to spare. Visser 3 lifted the Andalite straight up in the air, tearing him from the grasp of the Hork-Bajir. The Andalite prince struck again and again with his tail, but each strike was like a pinprick against such a creature. Visser 3 held the Andalite high in the air, and then Visser 3 opened his wide mouth. And I just realized, if we were to revisit this, which I certainly would not be opposed to, it's a lot of books, but each book is not terribly, terribly long. As a matter of fact, I want to see the total word count for the main series. Total word count Animorphs. But I definitely wouldn't mind. But if we come back and revisit this over time, I think what we would need a little like sound sting, right? Like I've got the thunder for Percy Jackson. I'm going to do more and more music, I think, because I need those to be a little longer for the edited version. I've tried to do as much as I can, just edit. Instead of editing later, I just want to edit in real time, so I add those sound stings at the start of thing. Even though it's turned out really wonky for me over in Murder on the Orient Express. I was trying it, but it wasn't working so hot. So we'll see. We'll see what we end up with there. But we need a little sound sting, and with Percy Jackson, it was really easy. Thunder. There's one perfect answer. But I think like if I were to have a little like not music, but like for chapter breaks and such, what would that noise have to be? Percy Jackson's got thunder. What do we have in here? I feel like laser guns would be like the sort of like easy answer, but it also doesn't feel quite right. Bitter Bard. Maybe we'll have to coordinate on that. Jem says, I told you I like Rachel. Yeah, y'all are gonna. You may not like every character in here, but you will at least like how they were written. Every single character, every single main character in here. I don't remember like minor characters. Y'all, it's been a long time since I've read this. I am now 28, so it is very possible that it's been almost 2 decades. It won't have been a full 2 decades because I think I was in middle school when I last read the final book. I sort of lost track of them for a while, and then I found out that my library had gotten in a few more of them, and I read like the big finale, sort of realizing like I've kind of read as much as I'm gonna be able to get my hands on. But ooh, baby. Bitterbard says every main character is great, and they are. That's the weird thing about this. Again, I was coming back to this like, okay, Animorphs, Courier 6. Like I sort of felt like you were a little deeper into like decent stuff. This is a pretty cheeseball thing. No, reading back through this, like looking at how these characters are handled. Again, we're only reading we're reading the first half of book 1, which means you might not get the full picture of this, but I want to be super clear. These books are really, they do it really well. Really well. Okay. Now, let me see. Oh, whoa. Whoa. I didn't realize this, though. I did not figure this was a terribly long book, and yet I have just discovered in this, let's see, Quiblo Boy over on Reddit has done a word count for the entire series. The longest main series book is book 1, The Invasion. That can't be right. I read a very long one that was the sort of finale. Let's see. Involved like Redwood National Park, I believe. Bitterbard, you may have to help me with this over on Discord. But I guess this first one is the longest one. Anyway. Okay, let me see. So some of these are pretty short. Assuming you're reading the release order, the moment Animorphs becomes longer than Harry Potter is book number 39, The Hidden. But the overall word count for this series, and I don't know, does this include the side chronicles as well? Because there are a couple of different ones. I'm going to assume maybe not. But there are, instead of 7 books, there are about, they're north of 50. I can't remember if it's 50 odd or 60 odd. Word count, 1,449,150 words. So essentially, like, basically 1.5 million words. The Harry Potter series total clocks in at about 1 million. Like, pretty roundly 1 million. So 1.5 million, this would probably be a few years for us. This might be a 3-year engagement if we were to jump into the Animorphs series. But like I said, it would not be time wasted. Hold on, let me get my voice changer on. Oh boy. Okay. Now, like I said, we got to chug on through chapter 6. Let's get into it. Once again, folks, I should say, once again for this stream, even though I haven't mentioned it on this stream, but once again, just in general, this sort of thing would fall in the flying sidecar category. And as per always, this is a great chance for y'all to discuss, for all of us to discuss. We're going to have some time maybe after this. If we've got time after this, I would love to talk about whatever y'all are talking about in chat. I will go ahead and I encourage y'all to put in whatever thoughts you have. If you've got questions, if you've got concerns, try to stay out of spoiler territory. Bitterbard is being very intentional about that. I appreciate you. Yes, indeed. Yeah, 54 odd books. That is the main series. Like that's the bulk of it. We're not even talking about side chronicles there. Okay. Now, there we go. Everybody? There's a spreadsheet in here too. Okay, I'm going to have to leave that there. I may revisit this Reddit post in the future. Here, I guess I don't know. Maybe this is interesting to Bitterbard, but I suppose I will put this in here if you want to take a look at it. Okay. Chapter 6. I don't know what came over me right then. I had been so afraid, so terrified, but it was like something just snapped in my head. I couldn't just hide and watch. I couldn't. You filthy... I jumped to my feet. I snatched up a piece of rusted pipe iron from the ground and started to climb over the wall. I guess I just went crazy or something. It had to be craziness, because there's no way I, alone, armed with a piece of pipe, was going to accomplish anything.
No!
The Andalite's silent cry made me hesitate. I felt Marco's hands grabbing my shirt and pulling me back. Tobias and Marco held me down. Rachel put her hand over my mouth. I was trying to scream or curse or something. Hey, shut up, idiot! Marco hissed. You're gonna get us all killed! Jake, don't. Cassie put her hand on my cheek. He doesn't want you to die for him. Don't you realize he's dying for us? I shoved Marco and Tobias away angrily. but I was in control of myself again. I peeked over the wall. The Andalite Prince was helpless in the grasp of Visser III. I saw him held high in the air. I saw Visser III open his monstrous, gaping jaws. I saw the Andalite fall into that open mouth. The mouth closed. The teeth ripped the Andalite apart, and the Andalite Prince Elfangor Cirinyal Jamtul died. At the very end, he cried out. His cry of despair was in our heads. His cry will always be in our heads. The Hork-Bajir controllers began making a huffing sound, like a maybe they were laughing or applauding. The Taxon controllers rushed forward and crowded around Visser III. They seemed to be stretching up toward him, and then I saw why. A piece of the Andalite fell from the Visser's jaws, and the nearest Taxon greedily gobbled it up. Tobias turned away and covered his face with his hands. Cassie had tears streaming from her eyes. So did I. I heard a sound that was strange because it was so normal. It was laughter. Human laughter. The humans, the human controllers, because that's what they were laughing. Like they were at some kind of show. For a moment it seemed to me that one of those laughing voices was familiar, like I'd heard it before. But then the sound was swallowed up in the huffing of the Hork-Bajir. Visser III morphed out of his monstrous form and slowly regained his Andalite body. I heard him think.
Nothing like a good Antarian bog morph for taking a bite out of your enemies.
Again, the human controllers laughed, and the Hork-Bajir controllers huffed, and I heard a familiar human laugh I could not quite place. Marco started throwing up. It was an understandable thing to do, but somehow that sound caught the attention of the nearest Hork-Bajir. The snake head turned. It was perfectly still. We were perfectly still. The Hork-Bajir turned toward us. The nearsighted eyes were aimed directly at our little hiding place. I don't know who panicked first. Maybe it was me. Maybe we'd all just had the fear and horror we couldn't stand. It was like an electric shock went through all of us. We were running before I had the chance to even know what I was doing. I ran. I gasped for air. A cry went up from the Hork-Bajir. "Split up!" I yelled. "They can't follow all of us!" Marco and Tobias and Cassie took off in 3 different directions. Rachel was still right beside me. Glancing back, I saw the Hork-Bajir hesitate, unsure which of us to chase. Rachel and I were the fastest runners. Tobias is totally out of shape, and Marco and Cassie are too short to be really fast, so I figured the aliens were going to chase anyone, so it ought to be us. I guess Rachel thought the same thing. She slowed down a little and began yelling and waving her arms. "Come on! Come on, you!" And then she said some words I didn't realize Rachel even knew. The 2 nearest Hork-Bajir snapped around and took off after us. "Go first! Here! Go first, feet! Enemy! Get!" Even in my panic, it still surprised me. They were talking in some mix of their own alien language and ours. "Go first! Feet! Nahar! I get! I kill!" I ran. Suddenly my foot slammed into something and I was down. I hit the ground hard. The wind was knocked out of me. I tried to fill my lungs again. Rachel ran on. She didn't know I had fallen. A spear of red light struck a concrete pipe just beside me, and the concrete vaporized. The 2 Hork-Bajir were coming after us, bounding like some devil kangaroos. I was up and running. Rachel must have realized I wasn't with her anymore. She stopped and started to come back toward me. "Don't be an idiot!" I yelled. "Run!" She hesitated just a second, but she knew she couldn't do anything for me. She ran. I saw a dark hole ahead and raced toward it. A doorway. Inside it was as black as a grave. It was one of the buildings that had almost been completed, just bare concrete walls and scattered junk, but I knew I had been in here before. Marco and I had walked all the way through it. There were hallways and little side rooms. It was like a maze. Marco, Rachel, had they gotten away? And what about Cassie and Tobias? I tried to get my brain to concentrate as I scurried across the first big room. There was a corridor somewhere. I groped in the dark and found a wall. I heard the sound of claw-like feet, huge, tearing, rending claw feet scraping over the bare concrete. A bottle went skittering across the floor. The Hork-Bajir was close. In the total darkness, my superior human vision wasn't much use, but I knew my way around the empty building. At least, I would have known my way around the building if my brain had been working. I felt my hand go into emptiness. A doorway. Yes, it led down a hallway. I went through just as the light came in behind me. Someone had brought a flashlight. If Nord to der Falle not fit, whatever order. No need to capture them. Whoever you find, kill. The first voice had been Hork-Bajir. The second voice was human. And the weird thing was, that voice sounded familiar. I tried to think. I knew I'd heard that voice somewhere. Where? Just save the head, the human told the Hork-Bajir. Bring that to me and we can identify it. I slid quickly along the wall. The light followed just steps behind me. I racked my brains. Had there been a passageway? Yes, there it was, and silently as I could, I slipped through it. The flashlight beam was just inches behind me. I kicked something soft. Hey! It was a man. He'd been lying on the ground, wrapped in a blanket. Hey, get out of here. This is my place, and I ain't got nothing for you to steal. I started to warn him, but one of the Hork-Bajir was there. The flashlight landed on the homeless man's face. He blinked like an owl. It was an alcove, right behind me. I backed through. The homeless guy screamed. I heard the sound of a scuffle. Maybe the guy got away. I hope so. But I never found out. Because the Hork-Bajir distracted, I ran. I ran and ran and ran. And as I ran, I really hoped it was just a dream. There it is, folks. All right, now I'm going to take a quick break here because I think I need it. We are, let's see, I think we're maybe slightly more than halfway through our read through for today. We're just slightly beyond halfway. Y'all, thank you very, very much for watching. I think it's high time we did a quick Patreon parade, and then I'm going to take a quick break for the day. So I would like to say thank you just a ton. Hey, let's go the other direction this time. We've been going one direction the whole time. Let's go the other direction. So, starting with our bold bookmarks, down with the down at the very earliest level, no less important, of course, as I've mentioned to you many times before. Lots of people joining at a low level can quickly outpace just one person at a very high level. So, thank you a ton to Melted Plastic Bag, aka Melty, who we've been hanging out with some more recently. Very funny to me that you would join in here as a patron, but I do appreciate it. Of course. Gwen Dog. Oh, wait, excuse me. Hold on. I'm out of order. It's all out of order. Hold on. Melted Plastic Bag. Thank you very much. Tenacia. Reed. Sing Say. Saumya. Sapphire Lady. Stationary Fork. And Kim. Y'all, thank you a ton. It has been delightful. Absolutely delightful to have you in here. Thank you for jumping over to Patreon. I know sometimes it sort of feels like, I don't know, is $3 worth it to sort of throw in? And the answer is absolutely yes. Because all of you put together, you are really doing a lot to help out the channel. And not only that, but the more folks who are over there, I think it will encourage more folks to jump in. And I really, really want y'all to be in there to sort of help me figure out what I can give y'all that makes Patreon more and more worth it over time. I just want Patreon to just get better. Just in general, I want it to get better because Patreon as a platform and as a company is doing something really valuable in the world. At the next highest tier, we've got the pristine page, the next level up, Mr. Halfbit, angling for that mug. I see you, Mr. Halfbit. Mr. Halfbit's a big mug guy. That makes him sound like such a nerd. No, Mr. Halfbit, I really appreciate you jumping in. Jack, thank you a ton. Lucy, a new one. Dan, thank you. Amy, Neens, and Holly Rose. Y'all, thank you a bunch for jumping in there. Y'all are going to... I used to have the behind-the-scenes stuff set at a higher tier, but now I feel very comfortable bumping it down to the pristine page tier. So, y'all, I hope you enjoy some of the behind-the-scenes stuff coming up in the future. At the next highest level, up one step, the chapter champions jumping in. Gwen Dog, Ashes in the Sun, Sparkle Lovegood, Daniel, Gems, Vicky, Allie, Orly Rose, and E. Y'all, thank you a bunch. As I mentioned before, y'all are gonna have access to some of the new projects coming up. Giving those things a shot is something that I've never done certain things before, but y'all are my first line of feedback, so I appreciate you. At the next level up, the Novel Nouveau, what was my highest level for quite a while, Solderfish, once again, a new one. Deb, Good Courage, Louise, Marinver, and Sander. We've had a lot of folks upgrade to this one, which is just beautiful. I really appreciate y'all a ton. Y'all are helping to grow the channel at a considerable rate, and I really, really appreciate you jumping in there. If you started at a lower level and jumped up here, I appreciate you a ton. And then, of course, we've had folks like Louise and Sander, and, of course, Dahlia was in this tier for quite a while, who have been doing this for a long time. And so I appreciate you a bunch. Now, I could have sworn... Oh, that's right. I was going to say, I could have sworn Jade jumped in here, too. But then I remembered. Jade, I remember what you did. Up at the very highest level for now, because I have had one request for an even higher tier. I didn't even think I would have this tier, but this tier was a request from folks who said, you know what? Supporting on Twitch is fun, but they're taking 50% of every single subscription. And I don't know, maybe some of y'all feel some kind of way about this, but I know how I feel about money heading up to Amazon. So I really appreciate everyone who has subscribed over on Twitch and who has been so generous on Twitch. But these folks who say, hey, you know what? If we're going to support the channel, we want it to go to you, not you plus some other rando. So at the very highest tier, Jade Dragon and Death Metal Dahlia, the superstars, and both folks who have been, Dahlia has been with us since the very beginning. Dahlia is marking the 1 year mark just a couple of days ago of being a patron, even back before I was putting anything on Patreon, just when I was sort of sitting on the account name, so I made sure that nobody could steal it out from underneath me. And then, of course, Jade has been with us for a long time as well and been a patron for a long time. So, y'all, I cannot tell you the reason why I'm able to do book fair this week. The reason why I'm able to take some time off of work and say, you know what? I can take some days off here and we can try a bunch of new things. Thank you so much to my partners over on Patreon. Y'all are fantastic, and this is the reason why this is possible, why we're able to try some experiments like this, why I'm able to dedicate time to this at all. I think without the patrons, without people being so very generous, Sidecar Stories may well have ended this summer when the YouTube crashed, but instead... y'all are just very, very generous. So everybody, I appreciate it so very much. You're helping me to pay my hosting fees. You are helping me to take the time dedicated to edit all these shows. I do 3 shows a week, every single week, that are, lots of times they're upwards of 3 hours long. And so, it's a lot of time on stream and it's a lot of time off stream as well. But I really appreciate it, especially as I'm trying to edit back through my missing YouTube catalog so that it's up on Spotify. Everybody, you are rock stars. Welcome to the Patron Parade, and I hope y'all will give them a hand. Anybody who can't support over on Patreon, that is quite all right. Because the plan is, and why I call them my Patreon partners, is because we're making things for everybody. This is for you just as much as it is for them. I don't have any current plans. It is possible that there might be some special cases in the future where this may change, but I don't have any plans to make anything that doesn't eventually become available to everyone. And that is a big part of why Book Fair is fun, because now is when I take all the stuff that was sort of early for patrons and release it out to everybody in the world, everyone in the world. So if you want to check out what has been up there so far, I've been active on Patreon for about 6 months, and I'm very excited because now I've got a whole year before the next book fair that I can really sort of like throw in some cool stuff. I'm very excited. I have got probably 6 drafts right now, 6 or 7 drafts over on Patreon of new posts to be putting up there starting after Book Fair. So I'm very, very excited. Check out the BF command if you want to learn more about that. And of course, there are plenty of posts that are now available to non-patrons as well as patrons. And don't forget a couple of things, folks. Just a few people at low levels can quickly outpace one person at a high level. And this is not. It sort of sounds like I'm criticizing my high level folks. No. This is to say that for those of you who are wondering, like, does my little bit count? It absolutely does, and I want you to know I am very thankful to you. Also. If you are a patron for a little bit, or you're just a patron for the merch, you're just jumping in for a couple of months for the merch, or you just want to support for a little while or something, and then you head on out. That is all right. You are still very welcome back here. I'm going to be aware that you have ducked off of Patreon, but I don't feel any different about you. You're still very welcome to come hang out here. I'm not going to be frustrated. I'm not going to be sad. I'm going to be very happy that you've continued to hang around. I hope I've made that clear in the past. Folks who have contributed at certain times and then maybe have had slower times in their lives. A, it happens, and B, I don't expect it. It's just I really appreciate y'all who are partnered for whatever amount of time to help make things for everybody. Dahlia says, heck yes, I'm loving this. Excellent. That's my dastardly plan with Book Fair, is that we would come out of this week saying, hey, that was awesome. That was a lot of fun. Whatever streams you may have caught, what have you. And of course, over on Patreon, I am going to have a post up starting tomorrow, because I want to know what were your favorite streams. I want to know which ones were your favorite. So you can go over and check in on that poll starting tomorrow. That will be up for a while. So go head on over there. I'm going to be talking about that for a while, because it would really help me to know what y'all really enjoyed. And even more than that, I'm going to be talking about this more in the future, but get clips of things. Y'all actually, it may sort of surprise you to know how helpful that is to me. Because otherwise I have to sort of like go through and find, and even those are like, they're my favorite moments as like a person who made the thing, but as a viewer, that's not a perspective I can get. So it is surprisingly helpful if y'all go in and get clips of things of the different moments that you really enjoyed from Book Fair. So if you get your Twitch clips, remember these are going to be up on Twitch for the regular amount of time, as long as Twitch will hold them, and then they're going to be available over on Patreon at whatever tier. They're going to be available to every tier. And Jem says, Sam's going to make us choose? I am not. No, you can choose as many as you like. Don't worry, Gems. As many as you thought were like you just really, really enjoyed. But like I said, I'll have a post up there that will be up starting tomorrow morning. Dahlia says, I'm absolutely going back through and rewatching every stream so I can take clipping notes. Hey, if you wish to do so, I would absolutely appreciate it. But yeah, y'all don't know, like, it is really good to be able to share those clips then. Elsewhere, I would love to like take whatever clip. And of course, like I would love to see, if you're cool with it, I would love to like credit the folks who find the clips, because well, I would love to. I mean, if we can get enough, I would love to make a whole video of them. I'd love to make a whole supercut of like Book Fair highlights with the names of folks who sent clips to me. So I'm going to set up actually, no, I'm not even going to set up a channel. We're going to put it right in Book Fair. The Book Fair channel is going to be the spot for those. Please go and drop clips. I'm going to be making posts about this on everywhere as well. But this is the first time y'all are going to hear it. I really, really would love to edit together a supercut clip show of the entirety of Book Fair, because y'all, I have had so much fun. Starting this week, I was so anxious, like, am I going to be exhausted by like Wednesday, and how am I going to be able to? No, I could do another week of this if it weren't for external factors. And well, there's one non-external factor. I really would like to spend more time with Cass, because we've spent a good amount of time together this week, but it's been a lot of like, me being in here after she gets off of work. So that's the one non-external factor. I'd love to be back with Cass more. But other than that, we're talking energy-wise, I am good to go. I think I would start to burn out at the 3-week mark, but I could do another week of this for sure. 100% I could do another week of Book Fair. If it were just me. If it were just me and nothing to be done about it. But y'all, thank you very, very much. I'm going to go take a quick break. Okay? Y'all give me energy. Y'all get me so hype. Okay. I'm like giddy thinking about it. It's the last day of book fair, and I'm still like, I'm riding this wave so high. Okay, I'm gonna be back in 5 minutes. Y'all get to enjoy the sweet, like, action sort of cartoon version of the soundtrack, the theme I could imagine for Animorphs, because it's a pretty high action series. Like I said, I'm going to be making posts about it, but if you want to start clipping things and getting them in for the book fair clip show, go ahead and put those in the book fair channel. You don't even really need to give me context if you don't want. If you would like to, go ahead, but just get the clip, grab the link, pop it in book fair. That's it. That's all I need. And then I'm going to go find them. And I definitely want to see. I want to see what you got put together. I want to see what your favorite moments were. So honestly, do that sooner rather than later, because you will forget. You'll be wondering, like, oh, what stream was that, or when in the stream was it? Do it sooner rather than later. So I'm going to be making that post later tonight so that y'all can, like, get in there, because I want to see what you really enjoyed the most. Okay, all right. Oh, very exciting. I have loved this week. I will see you all in 5 minutes. Bye-bye. Hello, everyone, and welcome back. How's it going, y'all? I hope you're excited, because I sure as heck am. Bitterbart says, now for my favorite Animorphs topic when I first got into the series. Would anyone like to speculate on where the series is set? Does this get an answer? Does this ever get answered? I know later on in the series they sort of determine like where they end up, but yeah, does this ever get fully answered, Bitterbard? It says at the beginning, like, I don't want to tell you what city it is, because then they would be able to find me, but yeah, does this ever get like full on answered? Let me see. Courier 6, who is also known as Bitterbard, Courier 6 says, a lot of the later books feel a lot longer than number 1 because they're much slower paced and spend a lot of time on character thought or development more than exposition. I have cheerfully named number 1 the exposition rather than the invasion. I, too, would have thought number 47 was longer, but apparently it's much shorter. I also thought the Hork-Bajir Chronicles was longer than the Andalite Chronicles, but maybe that's because I owned it in hardcover, so it was much thicker. Let's see. Jade Dragon says, I'm enjoying this as well, but I've heard of it between pumping gas. Lol, definitely going to have time to re-listen. Okay, let me see. Let me see. Bitterbard says, fully explained where this series ends up? No. But a good detective can figure it out within a few books. Oh, I see. Oh, Bitterbard knows where it's at. I got you. So there is an answer. It's not just sort of a blank canvas. It definitely feels like it doesn't feel coastal. I guess, we shall find out if I am correct about that. But right now, it does not feel coastal to me. But we shall discover, shan't we? Shall we not? Shan't we? I believe it's definitely not. Let's get back into it. We have got a tiny bit of review. A group of kids walking home from the mall. They end up in an abandoned construction site. They find a crashed alien who seems to be relatively benevolent, injured, about to die, but it passes on 2 big things: some knowledge and some powers. Now, we haven't seen anything about these powers yet. Who knows if that's even legit? This whole thing might have been a dream, as a matter of fact, but this creature, who calls itself an Andalite, he passes on also this knowledge that there's more than just him. And the other aliens that are here on Earth are not like him. They are Yeerks, Yeerks, and they are slugs, essentially, that are pretty well powerless on their own, and yet they have the ability to take over the brains of their hosts and control them. And it appears that there is a small army of these things as they emerge from ships that land near the crash site. The kids in question, they run and hide while they sort of watch some of this go down. And the big bad one, Visser 3, who we discover is actually the only Andalite controller, as far as we are aware of right now. This Andalite controller, and controllers are what they are called when they've got Yeerks in their brains. Basically, this Andalite has the ability to morph, just like the Andalite said that he would give to these kids. And we watch as it morphs into this terrifying monster. The kids flee as it chomps down on the crashed original Andalite alien. The bad guys have won this battle, and the kids flee, almost getting caught. We don't even know who's safe as of that night, but we're about to discover precisely that. So, y'all, I hope you enjoy Animorphs, Book 1, The Invasion, Chapter 7. Somehow I made it home. I don't know how. I've got no memories of anything after the last sight of that Hork-Bajir. I wish I had no memories of anything that happened that night. If only I could forget it all. I called around to the others. Everyone was shaky, but they were all alive. Rachel kept trying to apologize for leaving me. Marco just kept asking me if I was sure it wasn't a dream. I guess I should have had the worst nightmares of my life that night, but I didn't. The world of nightmares was a joke compared to my new reality. By the next morning, a Saturday, I believed it had all been a nightmare. The only thing that seemed real, really real, was the way the Andalite had of smiling with just his eyes. I woke up when my mom started pounding on my door. "Jake, are you awake in there?" I was now. Yeah," I groaned. "I'm up." "Your friend Tobias is here." "Tobias?" What was Tobias doing here? "It's me," Tobias's voice. "Can I come in?" Sure." I sat up in bed and blinked several times, trying to get my eyes unglued. The door opened. I heard Tobias say thank you to my mom. He was glowing. I swear he was glowing. Not like he was radioactive or anything. I didn't mean that. It was just his eyes were shining bright and his face was one big grin and he seemed all tingling with energy, bouncing like he couldn't stand still. "I did it," Tobias said. I tried to get my hair to go in one direction by raking my fingers through it. "What are you talking about?" I was yawning when he answered. "I became Dude." I stopped yawning. My mouth actually snapped shut. Dude is Tobias's cat. Huh? Tobias glanced around like there might be spies in the room. "I became Dude, just like the Andalite said." I just stared. It was so amazing. It didn't hurt or anything. I was petting him and thinking about the whole thing last night, right? So I thought, why not give it a try? He was pacing back and forth, snapping his fingers, bursting with enthusiasm. Very unlike Tobias. "I don't even know how to begin, so I made sure the door to my room was closed and locked. Fortunately, my uncle was still asleep." Tobias has the most screwed up family I know. He never knew who his father was, and his mom had just decided to leave him a few years ago. Since then, he'd been shuttled back and forth between his uncle here and his aunt, who lives on the other coast. His aunt and his uncle can't stand each other, and it's like Tobias is some burden they try to shove off on the other. I get the feeling neither of them cares about Tobias. So, there I was, just sitting on my bed, thinking about it. Concentrating, thinking about becoming Dude. I looked down at my hand. He grinned at me. "What do you think I saw, Jake?" I shook my head slowly. I don't know." "I had fur, Jake. And I was growing claws. You should have seen the real Dude. He went nuts. I had to put him outside before I could morph all the way. He clawed me up pretty good." Tobias stuck a sliced finger into his mouth. I swallowed hard. Okay, this was definitely crazy now. Tobias, is it possible you maybe just dreamed all this?" "Not a dream," he said. He was now serious Tobias again. The grin was gone. "All true, Jake. All of it." His eyes met mine. I knew what he was saying. He had tried to pretend it was all a nightmare too. But it was real. I looked away. I didn't want to start believing it had all been real. I wanted it all to be safely stored away in my head, just another bad dream. Bad dreams should stay in your head, not come jumping into real life. "I just kept concentrating on changing," Tobias said, "and in a few minutes I was not myself anymore." His eyes bored in on me. "You got no idea what it's like, Jake. Being a cat, I can't even describe it. You're so strong. For one thing, just all this coiled power and the way you can move. You know what I did? I jumped onto my dresser, 3 feet straight up in the air and landed like a feather. 3 feet. You know how high that is when you're a cat? It's like a person jumping maybe 30 feet straight up." He stopped suddenly and looked at me. "You don't believe me, do you?" he said. Look, Tobias, it's just that sometimes it's hard to tell the difference between something real and something you're just imagining or dreaming." "You think I'm crazy?" I considered for a minute.
I don't know, Tobias, let's review the facts. You say you turned into your own pet cat. Turned into an actual cat. Yeah, I gotta say that sounds crazy to me.
Tobias nodded thoughtfully. He gave a little smile. I understand, Jake. You still don't want it to be true.
What? You mean, do I want to believe that you can change yourself into a cat? And all the rest of it? Do I want to believe that the earth is being invaded by slimy slugs who live in people's brains and turn them into slaves? Do I want to believe that? No, duh! I don't want to believe any of it.
How about the Andalite? He asked in a quiet voice. I hesitated, but I don't know why I didn't want to just pretend the Andalite away. Tobias put his hand on my arm. Stand right there.
What? What are you going to do?
I'm going to help you decide whether or not it's real.
Tobias.
Just wait and don't scream or anything. So I waited. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Tobias just stood there. I glanced at his face. His eyes were different. The pupils weren't completely round anymore. I swear there was a reflective greenish light in them, and his mouth was protruding a little, puffing out. He was shrinking, growing smaller right before my eyes. The neck of his shirt was loose. His pants started scrunching up at the ankles. He was shriveling, and at the same time, fur. Yep, fur began to grow out of his hands and neck and face. It was gray, striped with black, just like dudes. I had this absurd desire to start giggling. Tobias was becoming a tabby cat, but I knew if I started giggling, I'd just keep going on and on forever and never be able to stop. Tobias was more cat than human now. The pointed ears rose to the top of his head. The whiskers stuck straight out from beneath his delicate pink nose. He had dropped onto all fours, clothing now half draped over him like so many rags, and his tail twitched. Yep, his tail. I wondered if I would just drop dead from the lump that had filled my throat or the jackhammer pounding on my heart. Then I wondered if I was still asleep. But if it was a dream, it was a really convincing one. I was standing there in my bedroom, staring down at a gray-black cat that, less than 2 minutes earlier, had been my friend, Tobias. And that is the end of the chapter. But my stuff is all frozen up. There we go. Folks, it's real. It's real. It's happening. Again, we got some stuff to go through here, so I'm gonna roll on quick. Quick bit of review. A bunch of kids met an alien. The alien has given them some powers. It seems real powers, and told them that there is an invading force of sort of leeches that take over your brain. And that is the review. They have escaped from these things in their first encounter, and now they are back home. And Tobias has just convinced, I think, Jake that, no, that really happened. Dahlia says, opposite ends of the denial spectrum. Acceptance and true denial. Indeed. Indeed. Chapter 8. I hope I'm asleep, I muttered. I really do. You're not asleep. You're not asleep. You're not asleep. You're not asleep. Is that you? I demanded of the cat. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Tobias sounded surprised, although sounded wasn't quite the right word. Yeah, I said cautiously. I did not know I could send thoughts like this, Tobias said. Just like the Andalite. I guess it only works when you're morphed. I'm talking to a cat, I realized, and I thought Tobias was crazy. I wondered if Tobias had heard my thought. I concentrated. Tobias, can you hear me? I said, in my mind. Yeah, he said. I hear you. I hear you. I hear you. I hear you. Did you hear my thoughts before that? I asked.
No, I don't think it works that way. You have to think at me for me to hear. Hey, watch this.
Suddenly, Tobias leapt through the air. He pounced precisely on an autographed baseball that was lying in the corner, maybe a 4-foot jump.
This is so excellent. Hey, pull a string for me to chase.
Pull a string? Why?
'Cause it's so fun.
I dug into the desk drawer and found a length of string left over from a birthday gift. I'm not exactly big on keeping my room clean. The string was from a birthday 2 years ago. How's this? I drew the string slowly across the floor, a foot or more from Tobias's nose. He settled back on his haunches and began wiggling his hindquarters. He pounced. He landed on the string, grabbed it in his sharp teeth, and rolled over and began ripping at it like it was the only thing on earth that mattered. I tried pulling the string away, but he pounced again.
Yes! Got it!
Tobias, what are you doing?
Pull it faster. I see it. I got it.
Tobias, what are you doing? I shouted. You're playing with a string! Suddenly he stopped. His tail twitched. He looked up at me with those cold cat eyes, but I'm sure I saw a look of confusion there.
I don't know.
He admitted.
It's like I'm me, but I'm also dude. I want to chase strings. Oh man, if there was only a real live mouse around, I'd really love to track it. To follow it so quietly, to listen to its heartbeat, to hear its scratchy little feet. I'd wait until just the right moment, and then a perfect pounce through the air, claws stretched out.
He extended his claws to demonstrate. Tobias, I think we're learning something here, I said. Amazing how quickly I was becoming used to the idea of talking to a cat.
What? What are we learning?
I think you aren't just Tobias. You really are a cat. I mean, you have all the same instincts. You want to do the things a cat wants to do.
Yeah, I can feel it. It's like I'm two different animals melded into one. I can think like a person and a cat.
You'd better change back, I said. He nodded his cat head up and down. Very weird to see, I can tell you. A cat nodding yes in a thoughtful, normal way.
You're right.
The change back to human form was at least as strange as the change to a cat. The fur disappeared, leaving bare patches of pink skin around. The nose grew out of a flat cat face. The tail was sucked up like a snake going into a vacuum cleaner. Tobias stood there looking embarrassed. He quickly pulled on his clothes.
Maybe with some practice we can figure out how to change back into our clothes.
We? He smiled his gentle smile again.
Don't you get it, Jake? If I can do it, so can you.
I shook my head. I don't think so, Tobias. Suddenly he grew angry. He grabbed me by both of my shoulders and actually shook me.
Don't you understand, Jake? It's true, all of it.
I pushed him away. I didn't want to hear it. But he kept after me.
Jake, it's all true. The Andalites gave us these powers for a reason.
Fine, I snapped. You use them.
I will,
he said.
But we'll need you, Jake. You most of all.
Why me? He hesitated.
Geez, Jake, don't you understand? I know what I can do and what I can't do. I can't make plans and tell people what to do. I'm not the leader. You are.
I laughed rudely. I'm not the leader of anything. He just looked at me with those deep, troubled eyes. Eyes I can now see only in memory.
Yes, Jake, you are our leader. You're the one who can bring us all together and help us defeat the controllers. We have the ability to do much more than we can now, to have the stealth of a cat and the eyes of an eagle and the sense of smell of a dog and the speed of a horse and a cheetah. We're going to need all of it. If we've got any hope of holding out against the controllers.
I wanted it not to be true. I wanted none of it to be true, but I knew that it was. I nodded slowly. I felt like I was agreeing to something awful, like I was volunteering for a trip to the dentist or something much worse. It felt like 1,000,000 pounds of weight had just landed on my shoulders. I knew what I had to do next. Well, I said grimly, I guess I better go find Homer. Homer, that's my dog. All right, folks. What do we think? What do you think? Let's see. Dolly says, oof, this heat's making me tired. I was rudely woken up this morning after only 4 hours of sleep. Yeah, you had a late night too, Dahlia. A rough one. And, y'all, be careful with spoilers in the chat, you goons. Yas goons. Okay. Again, we gotta roll on quickly. Let's see. We have got chapter 9 coming up next. A bit of review, once again, moving on to our next chapter. They have discovered that this alien who landed and told them they're being invaded and gave them powers, supposedly, this is a challenging supposition for our friend Jake. Jake isn't sure if if this can possibly be real. As a matter of fact, it seems like he probably doesn't want it to be real. But if he accepts that Tobias, who is standing in front of him changing into a cat, can really do this, he has to accept that there's some other things in there that are real too, that he wants to be real even less. There we go. Chapter 9. It isn't painful. Morphing, I mean. I petted Homer for a while, feeling like a complete and total fool. This is the stupidest thing I've ever done, I told Tobias.
Look, you have to concentrate. At least I did. I mean, I formed this mental picture of dude, right? I thought about becoming him.
I see. So I have to, meditate on becoming a dog?
That's right. You gotta think about it. You gotta want it.
Normally, I would have figured he was nuts, but I'd just seen him turn into a cat, so if he was nuts, so was I. I thought about becoming Homer. As I stroked his fur, I formed a picture in my mind of me becoming Homer. Homer became weirdly quiet while I did it, like he was asleep. Only his eyes were open.
Just like dude,
Tobias commented.
I think the process kind of puts the animal in a trance or something.
He's just scared because he thinks his master's a Looney Tune. I continued stroking Homer's fur and concentrating, and Homer continued to lie very still. Okay, now what? I asked Tobias.
Now we better put Homer outside. He might get kind of freaked out by watching you turn into him.
I took Homer about 10 seconds to come out of his trance, but then he jumped up, normal, hyperactive Homer again. I put him outside in the yard. Tobias was sitting patiently when I got back, just waiting.
Give it a try,
he urged me.
Think about it. Want it.
I took a deep breath. I closed my eyes. I recalled the picture of Homer I'd formed in my mind. I thought about becoming Homer. I opened my eyes. Bow wow, I said, laughing. I guess it didn't work for me, Tobias. The back of my hand itched and I scratched it.
Jake,
Tobias said. What?
Look at your hand.
I looked at my hand. It was covered in orange fur. I jumped about a foot, straight up in the air. Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. I stared at my hand. The fur had stopped growing.
Don't be scared,
Tobias advised.
Go with it. Now you've stopped the morph. You have to concentrate.
My hand, I said. Fur?
Yeah, and your ears,
Tobias said. I ran to the mirror over my dresser. My ears had moved. They slid up the side of my head and were definitely larger than they should have been.
Come on, it's so cool,
Tobias said. I ran to the mirror over my dresser. My ears had moved. They had slid up the sides of my head and were definitely larger than they should be. "Go on. It's so cool," Tobias said. "Cool? It's creepy. It's weird. I mean, look at my hands. I have fur." "You have to do this," Tobias said. "I don't have to do anything," I said sullenly. Tobias nodded. "Okay, you're right. You don't have to do this. You can just forget what we saw last night and forget what we know. And as the Yeerks take over more and more people, you can just ignore it. We can all go along and grow up in a world where human beings are nothing but bodies to be used by murdering aliens." Okay, when you put it like that, it didn't sound like a great option. "Come on," Tobias urged. I swallowed hard. I closed my eyes. I thought of Homer, of being Homer. I felt the itchiness again, and when I opened my eyes, there was fur growing on my arms, and fur growing out of my face, and fur curling up from underneath my collar. My legs itched, and I realized they were growing fur too. My bones, well, they didn't exactly hurt, but they did feel very strange. You know when you go to the dentist and he gives you Novocaine so the drill doesn't really hurt, but you know it should hurt? I guess that's what it was like. My bones shortened. I could feel my backbone stretching out as it extended into a tail. There was a scraping sound as my knees suddenly reversed direction. I toppled forward, no longer able to walk upright. When my hands hit the floor, they weren't exactly hands anymore. The fingers were all gone. All that was left were short, stubby nails. My face bulged out. My eyes drew closer together. Tobias got up and tilted the mirror down so I could see myself. I watched the final transformation as the last patches of my pink human flesh disappeared. And the tail, my tail, sprouted to its full length. I was a dog. It was insane, but just the same, I was a dog. I knew I should be scared about this, only I wasn't. I was ecstatic. I was giddy. I was thrilled. Happiness just washed over me. Happiness filled me up. I breathed in through my ridiculously long nose, and wow, those smells, man, you have no idea. I breathed in, and right away I could tell that my mom was toasting a waffle in the kitchen. I knew Tobias had walked through the territory of a big male dog, and I knew things I couldn't even explain in human words. It was like being blind all your life, and suddenly you can see. I ran over to Tobias and sniffed his shoe. I wanted a better idea of who that big male dog was. From the scent of his urine I picked up on Tobias's shoe, I got a sort of picture of him. See, Homer knew him. His owners called him Streak. He was neutered, like me. He spent most of his time in the yard, but he broke out sometimes by digging under the fence. He got a mix of canned and dry food, Purina, no table scraps, unlike me. All this information made me happy all over again. I had to wag my tail. I looked up at Tobias. He looked tall and strange and not very colorful. I wasn't all that interested in looking at stuff. Smelling things was way better. Intruder. There was a noise in the yard. A dog. An unknown dog in my yard. An intruder. I ran to the window and perched against it and cut loose. I barked as loud as I could. No way some unknown dog was just going to walk through my yard. "Jake, get a grip," Tobias said. "That's Homer out there." Homer? But I tucked my tail between my legs. What was going on? "Jake, listen to me," Tobias said. "It's just what happened to me when I morphed into a cat. The dog brain is part of your brain now. You have to deal with it." "But there's a dog in my yard." "That's Homer, Jake. You are Jake. You're just in a body copied from Homer's DNA. That's the real Homer out there. You put him out there. Focus. You are Jake. Jake." I took several deep breaths. Oh, the smells. Oh, boy, there was this one smell I couldn't quite... "Focus, Jake," I ordered myself. "Focus." Slowly, I calmed the dog part of my mind. Let go of the smells. Let go of the sound of the dog in your yard. It wasn't easy that first time. Being a dog is completely amazing. For one thing, there's nothing halfway about it. You're never sort of happy. You're happy! You're never sort of bummed. You are totally, completely bummed. And boy, when you get hungry in dog form, you are nuts on the subject of food. There was a knock on my bedroom door. Yes, my bedroom door. I knew who I was again. I was Jake. Jake with 4 legs, a tail, and a snout, but Jake. The knocking seemed incredibly loud to my dog ears. "Jake, you got Homer in there with you?" My brother Tom's voice. "Mom's on the phone. Stop him yapping." He opened the door and stepped in. He looked around, confused. Who are you?" he demanded of Tobias.
"I'm Tobias, a friend of Jake's."
"Well, where is he?"
"Oh, he's around,"
Tobias said. Tom looked down at me. There was a strange smell about him. My dog brain couldn't quite identify it. It was an unsettling, dangerous smell. And somehow, in my own mind, I heard the echo of a laugh. A very human laugh I had heard the night before, as Visser 3 swallowed the Andalite whole. "Hey, bad dog," Tom said to me. "Keep quiet, bad dog." Then he left. I was devastated. I wasn't a bad dog. Not really. I was just barking because some other dog was in my yard, but bad dog? I was a bad dog? No. I wanted to be a good dog. I crept into the corner, utterly miserable. Tobias knelt down and patted my head. When he scratched me behind the ears, I felt a little better. The end of another chapter, chapter 9. Folks, we are rolling on through here. We're doing okay. Okay, let me see. Okay, yes, we are on track. I think we're going to be able to make it through everything I was hoping to get through here. Again, we're going to make it through, I think, about 18,000, north of 18,000 words today. The entirety of the first book is about 35,000 words. So, if you are wondering how much further we have got to go once we are done with our part 1 today, just know that there is another. I would say I would slow down if we were doing this on like an average Thursday night. I wouldn't try to do like a full. I'm gonna see if we can hit 13 chapters today. We're about to embark on chapter 10. I think I can do another 4 chapters. 10, 11, 12, 13. In the future, like I said, we would probably slow down if we were to do this as a full series. But yeah, we're gonna try to hit 18,000 words today. I would have loved if we would have been able to like hit the entirety of the book, but no, 35,000 words, just too much. Too much. Sandra says, how many chapters are there in total? Let's see. I can find chapter 10 again pretty easy. Let me see. There are 27 chapters. But of course, not every number of chapters has the same number of words in it. Yep, we are hitting just about the halfway point, and I think we should probably just keep rolling on through, right? We can take a break at the end, just assuming we make it through all of this, but I want to make sure we do indeed make it through all of it. So, chapter 10. Jake is pretty well confirmed at this point, considering he has just become a dog, that he is indeed changed by whatever this Andalite did. But that means some of these other things that the aliens said are true as well. There are indeed aliens invading. He hasn't seen them personally, but he knows what they look like when they have taken over the body of a host. He's seen humans, even a voice that he might have recognized from out there. He has seen an Andalite taken over. He's seen other more terrible creatures. He better keep it together. But now they have to decide what to do next. Chapter 10. I called all the others on the phone when I got done morphing back into my normal human body. Tobias took off his own human body. Nope. Oh, okay, sorry, folks. There is a phone call that just came in that I do have to take. I will be right back. Just a moment. It might just be a spam call. We'll see. Hey, y'all. Really sorry. Very sorry. That was a very, very important phone call. Not positive stuff, unfortunately. It was not really news. I don't have news about it. It's not like I've got bad news, but some not entirely positive stuff going on in life right now. I'm going to push on with it. Fortunately, there is nothing critical, nothing urgent, but it's just like, okay, well, it's hard when there's nothing to be done. But that is what we're talking about here in the chapter anyway. So I'm just going to keep on rolling through. I appreciate y'all for sticking around. I've been away for, I don't know quite how long. But this is like, it is a relatively high stress situation, even though there's just not quite much to be done at the moment. Everyone who has to get to sleep, hey, go to sleep. If you want to do me any favors, just keep the stream running. We're back in. We're going to read chapter 10, okay? It's time. Tally ho. I called all the others on the phone after I got done morphing back into my normal body. Tobias took off on his own, saying he'd hook up with us after on Cassie's farm. I was on the kitchen phone with Cassie when Tom came in. "Oh, there you are," he said. I covered the mouthpiece. "Yeah, Tobias said you were looking for me before." "I just wanted you to shut your dog up," Tom said. He turned a chair around backwards and straddled it. I hesitated. For some reason, I didn't want to talk to Cassie while Tom was listening in. I'll see you in a couple hours, okay?" I told Cassie, and I hung up. I looked over at Tom. He's bigger than me, even though I'm not exactly small. His hair is darker, almost black, while mine is brown. I had always trusted him. He wasn't like a lot of guys who pounded on their younger brother. We were always kind of close, at least until the last year or so. Somehow, we just weren't spending that much time together. Partly it was because he was involved with this club called The Sharing. They did all this stuff together, so he was busy a lot of the time. The thing is, Tom should have been the very first person I told about all the stuff that had happened. But as I was sitting there watching him munch on toast, I just had this feeling. This feeling that said, no, this has to be a secret. Even from Tom. Instead, I told him the other thing I was afraid to tell him. I didn't make the team, I said. "What team?" he asked. He looked puzzled. "What team?" "The basketball team, your old team." "Oh, too bad," he said. "Too bad?" I repeated. I couldn't believe how little he seemed to care. "It's just sports," he said. He munched another big bite of toast. "Just sports?" I couldn't stop repeating what he said. Tom saying sports were no big deal. No way, he lived for sports. "Yeah, I guess I just don't have your total skill." He shrugged. "Yeah, well, I quit the team anyway. A couple of days ago." I practically fell off my chair. "You quit? You quit the team? And didn't even talk to me about it? What's the deal?" "I didn't say anything because I knew you and Dad would make a big thing out of it. Look, there's more important things than throwing balls through hoops," he said. He had this mysterious look in his eyes. I figured he meant girls were more important. "Besides," he added, "we do much cooler stuff at the Sharing. Maybe you should join up." I was stunned. Obviously, Tom and I were further apart than I realized. When we were done talking, I headed out to mow the lawn. I mow the lawn every Saturday. It's my major chore. That and taking out the trash, which I hate because we have to do all the recycling stuff. When I was finally done mowing and trimming and raking, I hopped onto my bike and took off. I had arranged with everyone to hook up at Cassie's farm. It wasn't exactly a normal farm, although it had been in the old days, and they still have horses and a cow, but now the main red barn is the Wildlife Rehabilitation Clinic. Cassie's father runs it. They take in any kind of injured animal except pet-type animals. There's always a good lot of birds, along with squirrels and deer and skunks and so on. Sometimes they even get a bobcat or a fox or even a wolf. Cassie's mom is a vet too, but she works at the gardens. That's this huge amusement park that also has a zoo, or I guess they call it a wildlife park. Luckily, Cassie really loves animals. It would have been hard having her parents if she didn't really love animals. Me, I have a dog. Tobias has a cat. Cassie has everything from porcupines to polar bears. By the time I got there, Marco, Tobias, and Rachel were already waiting outside the barn. Rachel had her face turned up to catch the tanning rays of the sun. Cassie wasn't there yet. I figured she was doing chores. She had tons of work to do around here. "Hey, guys," I said. Rachel opened her eyes and immediately thrust a newspaper at me. "Look," she said, pointing to an article. I started to read the article. It wasn't very long. It said that police claimed there had been a disturbance at the construction site the night before. It said several people had called claiming they'd seen flying saucers landing there, followed by bright lights. "Cool," I said, looking up. "So the cops know about it now. That's a relief." "Keep reading," Rachel said. The article went on to say that the police had arrived on the scene to find a group of teenagers playing with fireworks. The teenagers had run away. Fireworks were discovered on the scene. The police spokesman had laughed at the reports of flying saucers. "It was just a bunch of kids playing where they shouldn't have been," he said. "They were definitely no flying saucers. People shouldn't be so quick to believe such nonsense." "But this is a total lie," I said. "Ding, ding, ding, ding! Correct answer! Johnny, tell the contestant what he's won," Marco said. "Did you see the last part?" Rachel pressed. I read the last sentence. It froze me up good, I can tell you. Police were offering a reward for information on the teenagers. "They're looking for us," Marco said. "Why would the police why would they lie?" I wondered aloud, but the answer was pretty obvious. Marco laughed his sardonic laugh. "All right, let's see, Captain Brilliant. Would it be because the cops are controllers?" "Probably not all the cops," Tobias pointed out. "If the police have been infiltrated by the controllers, who knows how many people have?" Rachel asked. "Teachers, people in the government, the newspapers, TV?" "Math teachers for sure," Marco joked. We all looked around nervously, like we expected to find ourselves surrounded by controllers. "I tried to tell myself it was all just a dream," Rachel said. "Yeah, I've been there," I said. For a while, no one said anything. We all felt the same terrible feeling, like we were all alone. Suddenly, we were dealing with stuff that was way, way, way over our heads. Marco spoke first. "Look, why do we have to deal with this? I say we just forget it. We never talk about it. We never morph. We just deal with our own lives." Tobias and Rachel both looked at me. They were waiting for me to argue with Marco. "Marco, I halfway agree with you," I started to say. Suddenly Marco just went ballistic. "We could get killed," he yelled. "Don't you get it? You saw what happened to the Underlight. I mean, this is radical stuff, Jake. This is for real. Real! We could get killed!" Tobias was looking at Marco with his sideways look, like he thought maybe Marco was some kind of coward. I knew better. Marco had his reasons. Marco shook his head. In a quiet voice, he said, "Look, I think these controllers are jerks. But if something happens to me, my dad, he wouldn't be able to handle it." 2 years ago, Marco's mom died. She drowned. They never even found her body. Marco's dad lost it big time. He totally fell apart. He quit his job as an industrial engineer because he couldn't handle being around other people. Now he was working as a night janitor, making barely enough to support Marco. He spent his days sleeping or watching TV with the sound off. "You can think I'm a weasel all you want," Marco said. "I don't care. But if I get killed or something, my dad will flat out die. He's only hanging in there because of me." I wondered if I should go pat him on the back or something, but if I had, Marco, being Marco, would have just said something sarcastic. "There's Cassie," Rachel said, shielding her eyes and looking off across the open field. A horse, galloping across the green. Its black mane was flying in the warm breeze. I didn't see any rider. The horse slowed down, trotting closer, and suddenly I had a strange feeling about the horse. "Cassie and I have been here for a while," Rachel said by way of explanation. "She's really good at this. Look how fast she can do it." The horse snickered softly, and the animal began to melt. The big brown eyes became slightly smaller. The long muzzle became a human mouth. A thing that was part horse and part Cassie smiled at us with big horse teeth and said, "Hi, kids." Marco suddenly sat down, very hard. He had never seen a morphing. "It's cool," I said, trying to sound relaxed. "It's just Cassie." I decided I'd better be a gentleman and look away. After all, when Tobias and I had morphed, we kind of morphed right out of our clothes. But I noticed that as Cassie emerged from the horse, she was wearing a skin-tight blue outfit. One of those outfits girls wear to do aerobics. I watched and saw something beautiful happen. For a few seconds, she stayed half horse and half human. She reminded me of the Andalite, and I realized it was deliberate. Cassie was controlling the way she morphed. "Geez, Rachel," I said, "you're right. Cassie's good." Suddenly we heard the sound of tires on gravel. We all spun around. Down the gravel and dirt road came a single black and white car. "The cops!" Tobias cried. Okay, super quick review, because we're starting to run up on time, and we've got 3 more chapters to read. Quick, go. Oh, baby. I don't know. We'll see what I can do. They've got morphing powers. They met an alien. Turns out there are more aliens. There's parasitic aliens that take over people's brains and control them from the inside. Okay, everyone's not sure what to do about this. Seems like Marco has his reasons for not wanting to put himself in danger. Jake is half in, half out. Tobias is super in, wants to believe everything that the Andalite said, wants to fight the Yerks, etc., etc., etc. Bop, 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 let's go. Bitterbard says, this stuff about Marco and his dad, it makes me very sad. It resonates deeply with me. My mom didn't fall apart the way Marco's dad did when my dad died, but there's a very real sense of having to hold everything together to support your parent after one dies. I believe that. I have no experience, so I cannot empathize, I can only sympathize. But yeah, I think everyone, like when you go through a huge loss like that, it's kind of everyone feels the need to hold something together for somebody else. In big ways. Definitely. Sorry to hear that, Bitterbard. Chapter 11. "Cassie, morph, now," I snapped. The police car was coming fast. "We do not want to have to explain a half-horse, half-person." "Which way do I morph?" Cassie wailed. "Horse or human?" She reared up slightly on her hind legs. I knew what was happening. She was fighting the horse's urge to panic. "Human, human, human," I said. "Everybody stand in front of her." The police car squealed to a stop, sending the gravel flying. A single policeman stepped out. I waved at him.
"Good morning," he said. "Your kids, hiding something?"
I wanted to look over my shoulder to see what kind of shape Cassie was in, but that would have been a mistake. "Hiding something?" I repeated.
"Step aside, all of you,"
he ordered. We did, revealing Cassie, fully human. The policeman looked puzzled, but then he shrugged. I breathed a huge sigh of relief. "Can we help you, officer?" Rachel asked in her best responsible voice.
"We're making some inquiries,"
he said, still looking at Cassie like something must be wrong with her.
"Looking for some kids who were shooting off fireworks in the construction site across from the mall last night."
Suddenly Marco started coughing.
Is something the matter with him?"
the policeman asked. Nope, I said. Nothing wrong with him.
"We want these kids,"
the policeman said.
"We want them real bad. You see, it was dangerous, what they did. Someone could have been hurt. We want to find these kids."
And suddenly I knew he was one of them. The policeman was a controller. I looked at his face. It seemed normal, but inside his head was a creature from another planet, an evil, parasitic slug. Just behind those normal human eyes, something vile lurked. "I don't know anything about it," I lied. He looked at me real close, and I began to sweat.
Hey, you know what? You look familiar." You look like a young man I know named Tom.
He's my brother, I said, trying not to let my voice go weird. But I just couldn't forget the fact that it wasn't really some normal human cop I was talking to. It was a Yeerk. This wasn't even a human anymore. Not really. It was a human controller. The human brain was totally enslaved.
Hey, Tom's your brother, huh? Well, he's a good kid. I know him from the sharing. I'm one of the adult supervisors. Great group, the sharing. You should come to a meeting.
Yeah, Tom invited me already, I said.
We have a lot of fun.
Yeah, I repeated.
Well, you call me if you hear anything about these kids in the construction site. I should warn you. They may come up with some pretty wild story to conceal their guilt. But you're too smart to believe a bunch of crazy lies, aren't you?
He's a regular genius, Marco said. Finally, the policeman took off. Okay, rule number 1, Rachel announced firmly. We don't do anything to attract attention. We have to be secret about everything, especially morphing. Cassie looked embarrassed. Yeah, it was stupid of me. It's just... it's so amazing. Running around like that, out in the open spaces, running and running. How did you manage to morph with clothing? I asked. When Tobias and I did it, well, let's just say it's a good thing neither of you girls were around. It took some practice, Cassie said, and it can only be tight clothing. I tried it with a coat on. It got shredded. I don't know what we'll do in the winter. That's not going to be a problem, Marco said firmly, because there's not going to be any more morphing. Maybe Marco's right, Rachel said. This is too big for us. We're just kids. We need to find someone important to tell this to, someone we can trust. We can't trust anyone, Tobias said flatly. Anyone could be a controller. We tell the wrong person and we're all dead. And the whole world will be doomed. I don't want to stop morphing, Cassie said. Do you realize all that we could do with this power? We could communicate with animals, maybe. Hope to save endangered species. Humans may be the next endangered species, Cassie, Tobias said quietly. What do you say, Jake? Cassie asked. Me? I shrugged. I don't know. Marco's right, we could all get killed. Rachel's right, this is too major for a bunch of kids. I hesitated. I didn't know what I was about to say. But Tobias is right, too. I mean, the whole world is in danger and we can't trust anyone. So, what do we do? Rachel demanded. Hey, it's not like it's up to me to decide, I said hotly. Let's take a vote, Rachel said. I vote that we try to live long enough to get driver's licenses, Marco said. I vote we do what the Andalite said. Fight, Tobias said. You've never even been in a fight, Marco sneered. Can't handle the punks at school, suddenly now you're gonna kick butt on that Visser 3 freakazoid? Tobias said nothing, but a blush spread up his cheek. I vote with Tobias, Rachel said, giving Marco a dirty look. I wish we could dump this all on someone else, but we can't. Let's think it over for a while, Cassie said. It's a big decision. I mean, it's not like we're deciding whether to wear jeans or a skirt. I was relieved. Thank goodness for Cassie. Yeah, let's wait for a while, I agreed. In the meantime, no one say anything to anyone. We just go back to normal life. There was a smirk on Marco's face. He thought he'd won. But I wasn't so sure. Tobias was still blushing. He sent a secret, grateful look to Rachel. Marco and I took off toward my house again, trying to act normal. We talked about the baseball season. Talked about who was going to slaughter who in Dead Zone 5, which is this CD game we were going to play on my computer. By the time we'd reached my house, we'd run out of stuff to talk about. We played Dead Zone for a while. Neither of us did very well. Face it, games weren't all that interesting anymore. My mind was totally not there. Tom came in after a while.
Hey, you guys, he said. Can I give that a try?
It'd been months since Tom had done anything with me like play a game. Okay, sure. Marco moved over and gave Tom his control stick. We played for a few minutes and Tom did pretty well. But then it was like he got bored or something. He gave the control back to Marco and just sat back and watched. You guys hear about all that stuff going on at the construction site last night? He asked me. Marco jerked in surprise. What stuff? I asked. It was in the newspaper, Tom said casually. They said some kids were shooting off fireworks, a bunch of morons who lived around there decided it was like flying saucers or something. Flying saucers, you bet. Marco and I both laughed too. Yeah, it was just these kids playing with fireworks, Tom said. Uh-huh, I said. It was very hard to concentrate on the game. You were out at the mall last night, weren't you? Tom asked me. Uh-huh. Did you come back through the construction site? I shook my head. No way. Didn't see any kids hanging out there, maybe? No. It's not like I get them in trouble, Tom said. I mean, it's kind of cool, actually. They're just shooting off fireworks. They get all these people terrified of flying saucers. Uh-huh. Flying saucers. He laughed again. Only complete dips believe in that kind of stuff. He leaned close. You don't believe in that, do you? Aliens and spaceships and little green men from Mars. I wanted to say no. None of them had been little or green. But I just said, no way. Tom nodded and stood up. Cool. You know, Jake, I feel like we haven't been hanging around much lately. Yeah, I guess not, I agreed. It's too bad, he said. He snapped his fingers like he just had an idea. You know, you should join the sharing. Marco, too. Why should we join? Marco asked. Tom just grinned. I gotta go, he said. Gave me a playful punch in the shoulder. Catch you guys later. And don't forget, let me know if you hear anything about those kids at the construction site. He left. Marco looked at me. Jake, he's one of them. What? Tom. Tom is one of them. Your brother is a controller. Hey, there we go. Once more, rolling on through. Okay, a bit of review. First of all, Bitterbard says Cassie with the Brit accent is funny to me. Yeah, I couldn't decide. So we have Rachel and Cassie, and I knew one of them needed to have a pretty distinctive accent. I couldn't decide whether to go Southern or like Brit, and I went with Brit just because I actually don't really know why. I don't know, it just seemed like the right option. I didn't want to go Southern again for folks, so I'm sure we'll have some Southern voices popping up in here, but I wanted to, mix it up a little bit. Okay, Bitterride says, possibly because the lady who reads her in the official audiobook sounds like she's British, but trying to do an American accent. Oh, I see. That can be very off-putting. That's very tough. Okay, Chapter 12. I think at this point, you've hopefully been with us for a while. Jake and his friends are trying to decide what to do about this mysterious power given unto them by this alien that has warned them, hey, I'm giving you this power because you need to use it to resist an invasion. People have their reasons for wanting to do that, and people have their reasons for wanting not to. Let's find out which side wins. Chapter 12. I swung my fist and caught Marco in the side of the head. He jumped back and I swung again, but Marco was quick. He dodged my second swing and I slipped and went down. Marco snatched the bedspread off my bed, threw it over me to tangle up my arms, and sat on me. Quit acting like a stupid jerk, he said. I was trying to grab him, but he had me pretty good. Take it back, I yelled. And not likely, Marco said. You think it's just a coincidence he's suddenly all interested in what happened at the construction site? I knew it looked bad. Even while I was struggling to get free and kick Marco's butt, I had this sudden flash about the smell I'd noticed on Tom when I was morphed into a dog. And there was that laugh I'd heard at the site. But no, this was Tom, my big brother. Tom would never, ever have let one of those slimy creeps into his head. Never. I'll let you go if you calm down, Marco said. Look, maybe I'm wrong, okay? I stopped struggling, and Marco let me up. You gotta admit, Jake, it doesn't look good. Tom's not one of them, okay? That's final, I said. Yeah, whatever, Marco said. Just don't punch me again, because I might have to hit you back. Just then, I heard this fluttering noise at my window. Someone was beating on it very softly. I went to the window, followed by Marco. There was a bird there. Some kind of huge bird like an eagle or a hawk beating its wings against the window.
Let me in, all right? I can't hover here forever.
Marco's eyes went wide. He had heard it too. I opened the window and the bird flew straight in. It landed on my dresser. It was almost 2 feet long, mostly brown, with gnarled talons and a sharp, hooked beak. It's some kind of eagle or something, Margot said.
A red-tailed hawk, actually,
Tobias said. Is that you, Tobias? Marco demanded. I thought we weren't going to do any more of this morphing.
I never agreed to that.
Well, morph back, Tobias, I said. You know what the Indolite said, never stay in any morph for more than 2 hours. Tobias hesitated. He tilted his hawk's head and peered at me with an incredibly concentrated gaze. At last, he hopped over onto my bed. Let me tell you something. It is beyond weird watching feathers turn into skin. The brown feathers ran together and merged and turned pink. It was like the feathers were melting, like they had turned into wax and were being heated up. The beak disappeared quickly, and lips grew out of it. The talons split into 5 and became toes. Halfway through the process of changing, Tobias was a lump, half pink, half brown, with feather-like patterns still visible on his back and chest. His face was small and mostly human, except that he had those sharp, alert hawk's eyes. 2 tiny, shriveled arms protruded from the front of his chest with fingers like a baby's. All in all, it was a pretty disgusting sight. But the human DNA asserted itself over the hawk's, and he became more normal. About 3 minutes after he'd started the change, he was completely normal Tobias, sitting naked on the end of my bed.
I haven't figured out how to morph clothes yet, like Cassie, he said sheepishly. Can I borrow some?
I loaned him a pair of pants and a shirt, but my shoes were all the wrong size.
That was the coolest thing I've ever done in my life,
Tobias said. His whole face was glowing.
I was riding the thermals.
What's a thermal? I asked.
It's where there's this warm air rising from the ground. It forms a cushion under your wings. You can just float up there like a mile up. You can just surf the thermals. You guys have to do it. It's the best thing ever.
Tobias, how on earth did you do a hawk morph? I demanded.
There's an injured hawk right there in Cassie's barn, he said. There's a cool osprey too, but I decided on the hawk.
How did you fly if the hawk you morphed into was injured? I wondered. Marco shook his head pityingly. Jake, did you ever pay any attention in biology class? DNA's got nothing to do with some injury. The DNA wasn't broken, just the wing. I ignored Marco. You're lucky Cassie's dad didn't catch you, I said to Tobias.
He's so depressed,
Tobias commented. Who's depressed? Cassie's dad?
No, the hawk, I mean. I think he knows they aren't trying to hurt him or anything, but he can't stand being cooped up there while his wing heals.
Tobias's eyes darkened.
It's terrible when birds have to be locked up in cages. They should be free.
Yeah, free the birds, Marco commented sarcastically. I'll get the bumper stickers printed up.
You wouldn't have that attitude if you'd been up there with me,
Tobias said angrily.
It was cool being a cat and all, but a hawk, it's total, absolute freedom.
I had never seen Tobias so happy. I mean, Tobias has a pretty lousy home life. Thinking about it, I suddenly got this feeling. I repeated the warning. No more than 2 hours in any morph, right? You keep track of the time, right? Tobias smiled.
Yeah, I don't have a watch or anything, but with hawk eyes, you can actually see the hands of someone's watch when they're half a mile below you. It's like being Superman. You can fly, plus you have supervision.
Now he's Superman, Marco muttered.
I was looking around. I thought maybe I could see something from the air, Tobias said. I was looking for something that might be a Yeerk pool.
The phrase sounded vaguely familiar. I remembered Visser 3 saying something about it. Yerk pools? What's a yerk pool? I asked Tobias.
It's where the Yerks live in their natural state. Every 3 days, a Yerk has to leave his host body and go to the Yerk pool to soak up nutrients, especially Kandrona rays.
Marco and I exchanged suspicious looks. Neither of us knew any of this.
At the end, Tobias explained, when the Andalite told us all to run for it, I stayed behind for a few seconds. I guess maybe I was too scared to even run.
I shook my head. I knew better. Tobias just hadn't wanted to leave the Andalite alone. I think maybe the Andalite meant even more to Tobias than the rest of us.
Anyway, he gave me visions, I guess you'd call them. Pictures, information, a lot of it, all at once. All jumbled. I haven't even started to sort it all out, but I do know about the Yerk pools and Kandrona.
Marco held up his hand, silencing Tobias.
Let me check the door,
he said. He went to my door and peeked out into the hallway.
All clear,
he announced. Tobias gave Marco a questioning look.
Tom,
Marco said.
He's one of them.
Don't make me hurt you, I warned him angrily. Tom is not a controller.
Either way, we should be careful,
Tobias said. He lowered his voice.
The Kandrona is a device that produces Kandrona particles. See, it's like this little portable version of the Yerk's own home sun. The Yerks need Kandrona particles to live, like a human needs vitamins or whatever, and the Kandrona particles are beamed from wherever Kandrona is concentrated into the Yerk pool. Every 3 days, every Yerk has to leave his host body and go into the pool. They soak up the particles and then re-enter the host body.
What does this have to do with you flying around playing Superman? I asked.
Well, it seems dumb now, but I was thinking maybe I could see the Yerk pool.
He made a rueful smile.
I saw a lot of swimming pools and some ponds. You get up there and you realize there are ponds and lakes and streams everywhere, but I didn't see anything special.
And what if you found some Yerk pool? Then what? Marco demanded.
Then we'd blow it up,
Tobias said.
Wrong,
Marco said.
We have decided not to get into this.
No, we decided not to decide yet, I said.
Well, I've decided,
Tobias said.
Suddenly the wimp is a hero,
Marco sneered. This time Tobias didn't blush.
Maybe I just found something worth fighting for, Marco.
You didn't even fight for yourself, Marco said.
That was before,
Tobias said softly.
Before the Andalite. Before he died trying to save us. I can't let that go. I can't let him die for nothing. So whatever you guys decide, I'm going to fight.
There we go, folks. One final check-in here because we are rolling on down. Everyone, I would like to thank you very much. And we, of course, had our patron parade earlier on in the stream. Y'all, I want to thank you very much to BS Party of Two, a.k.a. Melty. Hey, thank you very, very much for joining us, both for, like, hanging out and playing games, but also for joining the Patreon. Y'all, this is Book Fair, and this is the one time of year where I'm going to spend a ton of time talking about Patreon, and then, as y'all hopefully have been able to see, even though I've been active for the last 6 months on there, I've been fairly quiet about it. I'm going to talk about it a ton this week, and then after today, that's the end of Book Fair. I'm probably going to I'm probably still going to talk about Book Fair, even though I might not talk about Patreon a ton, but I definitely want y'all to go and check that out. Like I said, even if you're not going to become a patron, just check it out over there, because I've got some things available over there that I think you're really going to enjoy. Hook or Crook has also joined in, and Hook or Crook, thank you very, very much. So, BS Party of Two, Hook or Crook, thank you both for jumping in. We got a couple of new bold bookmarks, and I appreciate you endlessly. Thank you all a bunch. And with that, Dahlia, I see your message. I will be able to attend to that once we are done with this stream here, because we got another one later, so I got to rush. Go, go, go! I couldn't think of a better spot, so I considered two positions to stop with this reading today, to stop with this stream. Either the end of chapter 11, where we hear that we hear Marco say that Tom is a controller, or the end of this chapter, and I went with this chapter. So, everyone, Thank you very much for joining me today. We now embark on our last chapter for this particular stream, Chapter 13. We find the Yerk pool, Tobias said. And when we do, we blow it up and kill every one of those evil slugs. I expected Marco to start yelling, but Marco's pretty smart. He could tell Tobias had reached me with his talk about the Andalite, so he just smiled, a little sneakily. You remember that cop today? The one who's so interested in finding out about the construction site? The cop that's probably a controller? What about him? I asked. Well, let's see. He invites you to join the sharing, and now along comes Tom, and suddenly he's very interested in whatever happened at the construction site, and guess what? Tom also invites you to join the sharing. Tobias nodded in agreement. Maybe this sharing is an organization for controllers. Marco smiled. He's my best friend and all, but sometimes Marco really makes me mad. So we're pretty sure that the cop is a controller, and I don't care what you say, Jake, I think Tom is too. So here's the deal. You want to get into this fight against the Yerks? Marco asked me. Fine. Let's see how much you want to do it when it turns out that it's your own brother that you have to destroy. That stopped me cold. It's not exactly some video game, is it? Marco said. This is reality. You don't know anything about reality, Jake. Nothing bad has ever happened to you. You got this perfect little family, just like I used to have. His voice cracked a little. He never talked about his mom's death. I realized he was right. I didn't know about reality. Not the way reality had happened to Marco. And to Tobias. So maybe we just walk away from this, Marco said. Let someone else fight this fight. I'm sorry about the Andalite, but I got enough death in my family. No, I said, surprising myself. The Andalite gave us the morphing power for a reason. It wasn't just for the fun of being a dog or a horse or a bird. He hoped we would fight. Then maybe Tom is the enemy, Marco said. Maybe it's your own brother that you'll end up destroying. Yes, I said. My throat felt all tight. Maybe that's what'll happen. Maybe not, but the first step is to find out more. And I think maybe the way to do that is to check out this meeting, the sharing, tonight. I'll call the others. Anyone who wants to come, cool. If you want to stay out of it, Marco, that's cool too. He hesitated. He sent Tobias an angry look, but he said, Okay, it's just a meeting, right? We can go and see. I'm in for that. I called the others. Rachel agreed quickly. Cassie had to think about it for a while, but she agreed too. I told Tom we were interested in attending the meeting. Me and Marco and Rachel and Cassie. We'd already decided Tobias would be there too, only in a different way. Tonight's a great meeting to come to, Tom said enthusiastically. We're having a bonfire on the beach, hanging out, playing games and stuff. We play night volleyball, which is super funny because half the time the guys can't even see the ball. It's great. The best organization. You're going to love it. Listening to him, it sure didn't sound like the sharing was connected to the Yerks. You couldn't really picture Visser 3 or a bunch of Texans playing volleyball. I was thinking maybe we were all nuts. The sharing was probably just some new kind of co-ed Boy Scouts or something. It wasn't that far to the beach, so we decided not to drive there with Tom. We walked. Tobias walked partway with us, then stepped behind a dark dune and got close to the shore. A few minutes later, we saw a hawk take flight. There aren't many thermals at night, so he had to work to get the altitude, but then I guess he found a decent enough updraft because he soared up and away until he disappeared. I have got to try that, Cassie said. It looks wonderful. Yeah, I agreed. Ahead, the bonfire burned bright on the beach. People all around were playing, talking, eating. Kids from school, adults, people I didn't know, others that I did. Were they all controllers, I wondered? How would I ever know? And was my brother one of them? After about an hour of hanging there on the beach, I was sure I was nuts. There was no way these guys were aliens. We played some volleyball, me and Tom together on one team. We ate the barbecue ribs they had. I mean, it was just like this normal good time. The sand was still warm. The night air was chilly, but near the fire it was nice. "Now you see why I enjoy this?" Tom asked me. "It's cool," I said. I looked around at the people having fun. I didn't realize it was so much fun. "Well, that's not all it is," Tom said. "I mean, it's more than just fun. The sharing can do all kinds of things for you, once you're a full member." "How do you become a full member?" I asked. He smiled mysteriously. "Oh, that'll come later. First you have to become an associate member. Later, the leaders will decide whether to ask you to become a full member. Once you become a full member, the whole world changes." At that moment, something weird happened. I was looking at Tom, and he was smiling at me, but then his face kind of twitched. His head started to pull to one side like he was trying to shake his head, only he couldn't quite do it. For just a split second, there was a look in his eyes. Scared or something. He was looking right at me, and it was like some different person, some scared person was looking right out of those same eyes. Then he went back to normal. Or what looked like normal. "I have to go for a while now," he said. "The full members have a separate meeting. You guys stay here and have fun. Have some more barbecue, okay? It's great, isn't it?" And with that, he was gone into the night. I felt like I had swallowed barbed wire. Marco and Cassie came over. They had just finished playing frisbee in the surf with some other kids. Marco was laughing. Okay, he said. "I admit it, I was wrong. These are just normal people having a good time. And Tommy's not a controller." I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Marco was wrong. I knew what I had seen in Tom's eyes. He was trying to warn me. Somehow he had managed to gain control of his face for just a second before the yerk in his head had crushed him. Tom, the real Tom, not the yerk slug in his brain, had tried to warn me. And that, my friends, is the end of this one. Sandra says, "When will you read more?" Well, I do not have any imminent plans. Once again, folks, as is typically the case, when I have a new stream open up, I am absolutely going to be coming to my patrons for a vote to decide when we jump into this one next. But you can find this video later on Patreon. Yes, indeed, Bitterbard, it is coastal. It's super coastal. You are totally right. It even, like when Marco said when Jake was talking about Marco and how he lived on two different coasts with his two different aunt and uncle. Yeah, I was like, oh, oops, goofed that up. Folks, I hope you have really enjoyed this. I hope you have enjoyed Book Fair at large. I have had quite a lovely time, and I really hope that you have enjoyed everything that we've done here. I will be seeing you all later, indeed, in about an hour. I'm probably going to be swinging into that one maybe a little bit late, but that'll give people a chance to file in. Don't forget, folks, you're going to be able to join and put your very own voice to this because I want to hear it. Go ahead and head over to Discord. You're going to have a chance to join in as whichever character that you wish. I'm going to have the script up here on screen, and I want to hear you. I want to hear your voices. You're going to have a chance to jump in there and, well, read along at home. So, everybody, I hope you are well. Luis, you're very welcome. Sander, thank you for being here. Bitterbard, Rubik's, y'all, thank you a ton. I hope you've enjoyed this quite a bit, because I certainly have. I want to thank Archer Kid. I saw that you have resubscribed. Archer Kid just says, that's just Buckbeak. Indeed. Y'all, thank you a ton. And I'll see you in about an hour. Bye-bye, folks. See you then.
We fought, but we lost. They have tracked me here. They will soon be here to eliminate all traces of me and my ship.
How can I do that? Cassie wondered. The alien seemed to smile with his eyes. Was the sound. That was the sound. This guy just remembered to lock up his ship. He's like, "Oop! If I know I'm about to be dead, but if I don't lock that ship, somebody else is gonna get in there and steal all my Mentos." Oh man! The moment I turned off my voice changer. Oh man! Oh good lord! Oh, it shouldn't have even been that funny, but, like, if it were just, like, in the middle of a sentence, it probably wouldn't have been nearly as funny, but just the fact that, like, I opened my mouth, it must have looked a little bit like I made the honking noise. Oh, man. Oh, good lord. Oh. Yeah, Dahlia, we've had some really annoying car sounds in the history of Sidecar Stories. That one I kind of didn't mind. Good stuff. Okay. All right, we're back. Where the heck were we?